New customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DEFEND to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on anything. That's code DEFEND. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 and over and physically present in Ohio. Valid one offer per first-time depositors who have not already redeemed $200 in free bets via pre-launch offer. Minimum $5 deposit and wager. $200 issued as bonus bets. Eligibility restrictions apply. See dkng.co/OH for terms.
92% of households that start the year with Peloton are still active a year later.
92% because of a bike?
Not just bikes. We also make treadmills and rowers.
Oh, let me guess, for elite athletes only, right?
Nope. It doesn't matter if you're an avid exerciser or new to working out. Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. 92% stick with it. So can you. Try Peloton bikes, tread or row risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.
Welcome to Cryptids of the Corn. Each week, Justin and Jay take a look at a topic in the crypto and paranormal world. They focus on the Midwest and Appalachia of the U.S., but sometimes they venture out with everything from well-known monster sightings to one-off cryptids, live person interviews to actual fieldwork sneaking in some science lessons. There's sure to be something you'll enjoy. Please join us this episode of Cryptids of the Corn.
Welcome back to part 3 of the Mothman saga.
Part 3 of Cryptids of the Corn's breakdown of the Mothman.
I'm Mr. E.
I'm still Jay.
Season 1 Jay.
I'm Season 1 Jay. It might have a nickname before this is all over.
Yeah, we only got like 16 more parts to go. I know. We're still into Mothman sightings.
My goal, by the time we're done with this, whenever this podcast takes me, I hope by the end of it, I have a nickname. Mm-hmm. There we go.
All right. So now we're getting into Jeff Wamsley's book, Mothman Behind the Red Eyes, a complete investigation library. So we're going to go into a lot of his books, eyewitness stories.
Okay.
A lot of these I haven't heard before the book. So this is going to be nice. Some of these will probably, I don't know, the first time on podcast.
I'm excited.
Are you?
I am, because I like the stories, and when it's a story you've never heard before, what's better than that, you know?
Mm-hmm. So
I did just have a thought, though.
Yes.
Not to be random right off the bat. All right, so you sang on our first episode, YMCA Mothman. Mm-hmm. I just thought of, why don't they make a song, no one knows what it's like to be the Mothman behind red eyes.
that's actually really good.
It's a pretty good one.
I think we could do something with that.
Might have to steal it.
Yeah.
Pear, if you're listening, do something with that. I got nothing beyond that.
All right.
You're the only guy I can think of.
I'm still coming down from anger because we literally just stopped about the Sandhill Crane last episode, which has only been about 2 minutes for us, but may have been a week for you guys. We have no idea how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're just recording these in like hour-ish chunks.
I think the redness is slowly coming out of your face. But
no, it's redness because now it's hot.
Oh, that okay. You're about as red as my tomato over there on the table.
All right, you ready? Yeah, your apple. Yeah, Jay walked in the house this morning. I thought he had 2 tomatoes.
I'm like, what are you doing?
And it was apples. I was like, I really thought he had tomatoes. I'm like, I don't eat tomatoes. I thought you were bringing them in because your garden was doing well.
Not yet.
All right. So, once again, Jeff's book. We'll plug it and we'll make sure we tag it and everything. So, this is, witness's name is Bob Bosworth. I think that's right, Bosworth. Sighting report as in the TNT area north of the power plant. Description, large winged bird-like creature. Report date, November 1966.
Okay, November.
So exactly the same time as the Scarberries.
Right, and yep.
So this is more, it's going to be more of the style of the questioning back and forth to get the example of like what they've seen.
Okay.
Because he's actively investigating this. So this is just, it reads as in his report with Bob. So it'll be Jeff and Bob's conversation about the sighting.
Okay, gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So this is Jeff asking Bob. So whenever this occurred, this was in November, or So whenever this occurred, this was in November of 1966. Do you remember the time frame, Bob? I remember that it was a chilly weather because we had on heavier coats. We were still riding our motorcycle, but still had to wear the heavier coats. So this was in the fall. And you and your friend were riding motorcycles in the TNT area. What happened from that? A friend of mine, Alan Coates, and had a motorcycle, and he and I decided to ride that evening, just riding around. And you were aware of some of the Mothman sightings going on? Oh, yeah, everybody has heard about him. But we were always calling it the bird. There was a very bright moon on that evening, as I recall. That was That's what Linda Scarberry also had said on the evening that she had spotted the creature. Oh, the moon was extremely bright. We had been riding around, and Al said, "You want to go up through the TNT area?" I said, "We might as well."
Right? Why not?
So you had a license, on the motorcycle? Oh yeah, we rode to Charleston, West Virginia one night, just riding around. Okay, I didn't know if you were on a dirt bike or not. So we decided to ride up through the TNT. We went out to what they call Camp Colonel Road, I think. There were two of you on the same bike. Yeah, we were riding out through there. And I remember that on the moon was so bright that I had guessed out at boredom. Al turned the headlight off on the motorcycle and dodged the potholes by moonlight. The road used to have a lot of potholes before they repaved it. And that's what the road that was adjacent to the old armory, or what are the fairgrounds now? Yeah, it goes out to the fairgrounds now. And the North Power Plant was on the right? No, it was on the left going out. Okay. It sits behind where the stage is for the fairgrounds. So we were riding out through there, and Al said, "Look at that." We stopped, and up on top of the roof of the old power plant building is what I believe was a three-story building. Was up on the top. It seemed to have two big, what looked like red eyes looking at us. We sat there and looked at it, and Al said, "You know what that is?" he said. "Somebody's probably got a couple of reflectors nailed up there." I got to turn the page, sorry. Nailed to a board up there trying to fool somebody. And I said, "I bet you're right." So I said, "Let's go up there and see what it is." And he said, "Yeah." So we went up there. We stopped right there underneath the building. And this is Jeff. Like the entryway? Yeah, we stopped right there and looked up. Well, it looked like these red eyes were looking down at us then. We still didn't bother us much because we thought whoever it was just turned the board. Mm-hmm. Maybe a couple buddies were up there messing around or something. Yeah, so we decided we were going up to grab the front of the motorcycle and turn the headlights on and pick it up and shine it on them. The motorcycle was too heavy, so we couldn't get it in front of the end of it up, so we decided just to go up. Now what you need to understand is that the whole side of the building, except the last of the 20 feet towards the end, were these great big industrial windows like you see in the old factories. They were big, but they were made out of small pane glass. Naturally over the years, all the glass had been knocked out by kids throwing rocks and things like that. Mm-hmm. Just nothing but the frames. The moonlight was so bright, it was shining through these openings and making it a distinct line towards the back of the floor. I tell you, it was bright, or I tell you how bright it was. We didn't have any lights, and there were great big holes in the 3 stories up where equipment and stuff used to be and had been removed, and we could plenty see these through these, because I was very leery of high places anyways. But anyway, we could see those very plain, so we walked back. We got back in here, like I said, distinct lines of moonlight. Well, we could make out the outline of something in the dark. And the front of my boots were probably a foot from the line. Then any further than that, and I would have stepped into the darkness. Sorry, his writing is very hard to read.
I'm following along. So basically, they're inside the building.
Yes.
And the moonlight is it's a full moon, I'm guessing, if it's that bright. It's coming in almost like sunlight. But yeah, anything beyond the moonlight is just straight pure darkness.
So you guys were still on the ground floor at this point? No, we were 3 stories up. I was thinking to myself, how in the world did they get up here on the roof of the building? Because in the process, a lot of demolition work, they had removed the ladders and that took you up to the roof. I thought, how in the world, say whatever I saw. Alan was right beside me. It very slowly and precisely walked towards us. Now remember, there is glass all over the floor. You can't take a step without hearing the crunch underneath your feet. We heard it walking, and it walked right up and just stayed in the dark side of the most distant line.
And
so they're on the top floor. Yeah. Whatever is in the dark, pacing them. So they can hear it walking over the glass.
Did they say it? They could hear it crunching the glass?
Yes, that's what I think he meant.
Okay.
Is that why we knew it was pacing?
Yeah. Okay.
It's because you could hear it crunching under the glass.
Okay.
And then he said, "Did you notice any red eyes at this point?" No, I thought about that, and I think that it was because there was no light reflecting off them. When it turned, it seemed to me that the beak, or whatever it was, wasn't very big. It looked like it was bulky and thick, but as far as being long, no. So the mouth of the front end of the creature.
Like a small, short-nosed or billed beak.
Really wide and bulky, but not long.
Okay.
So it was bigger at the top part of the body than it was at the bottom. Yes, it came down, I guess you could call a pear shape. That one thing when I was standing in front of it that impressed me was how much wider than me it was. I say at the shoulders it was at least a foot on each side of me wider.
Oh, wow.
Almost like something with shoulder pads or something like that. Yeah, but great big, but had a very distinct taper to it. Did you see any feathers? Just the distinct outline. As far as feathers, no. I wish I had. I wish I could have. I wish I could have gotten one. LOL. Because he laughs.
Oh, okay. I was going to say.
Yeah. No, this isn't. He didn't say LOL. But, he does say laughs.
He laughed. Yeah. That's some good detail. LOL.
So you're within 5 or 6 feet of the creature? The very farthest it could have been was 6 feet. So this is like...
Very close.
Yeah, that's scary. Did it have any certain mannerisms when it walked? Did it walk smoothly? It seemed to walk very smoothly and very precise. All of its movements were slow and precise. No flighty movements, no waddling, nothing like that.
Interesting.
So this is more, so far, like a...
little different.
It seems like it's standing off the guy.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Did you make any tape of the sound or anything? No, and its movements were very, very precise and slow. There were no quick movements. I got to the point that if it had taken one step and extended an arm, I could have touched it. At this point, did you two still think it was somebody that you knew goofing around, trying to scare people? Yeah. Here's what we did. Because you couldn't sometimes comprehend what you were seeing. Well, it looked very strange, so I told Al, I nudged him with my elbow, so he knew to go along with it. Al, that bird, I said, I'm going to shoot it. We didn't have a gun. Mm-hmm. So he's trying to scare the person he thinks is behind this thing. You just said it loud enough with an idea that if it was somebody trying to hoax, you would have them come out.
Right, yeah. Like, don't shoot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what was supposed to happen, whoever it was, if it were somebody, they should have spoken up and said, hey, man, don't shoot me, it's me. No, nothing. It just stood there. Right there. It said it again. And I said, Al, I mean it. I'm going to shoot it. He said, well, go ahead. Well, I put my hand in my coat like I had a gun. No sound. So it stayed in the same spot. It stood right there, just as if it were looking right at me.
Like calling his bluff.
Mm-hmm. Could you tell anything about the size of this, the thing was? What proportions and dimensions? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. That's something else that I had thought about in the years about it. I don't know of any man that I have ever seen with a build like that. Well, back then, I'm 5'9", and back then I weighed 170. I remember that its shoulders were awesome. Its shoulders went past me and tapered like that. Well, I compared it to a robin. You know, a bird that looks wider, or that's wider, their wings when they're folded, and it bulges at the top, and they kind of taper down.
Okay.
They also, the way Linda Scarberry described it, well, that's exactly the way it was, and it had no long neck like a bird. You know, like something those birds, like they tried to say it was. Sorry, his writing is really
Confusing.
hard. Yeah, hard to read. I'm putting an accent in my head.
Sometimes you need to. It helps.
Yeah, it was just thought it had a head and a large head sitting on top of its shoulders. The height, I'll put it this way. Like I said, I'm 5'9", and I had to tilt my head back a little bit to look up to where its face should have been. And it had a rounded head. Well, if you could imagine a U-shaped upside down, well, it was just too big to be a man. Would you estimate 7 foot tall? I would say between 6'6" and 7 foot. Yeah, because like I said, I didn't have to throw my head way back to look at it, but I still had to look up. Mm-hmm. And at this point, it still hadn't wavered from its position. No, what was hunting me was my night vision. What was hurting me was because my night vision. I was in the moonlight, and I was standing just beyond the line, right in front of there, maybe a foot in the dark at the line, so the distance that the moonlight didn't flood in. Was it in the room or anything like that on a catwalk? Yeah, there's a big concrete platform thing that then out of the catwalks veered off the equipment but I remember, well, in later years, I started to think about trying to analyze what I had seen, and I remember it made no threatening moves whatsoever. Did it make any audible sounds? No. No quick, no threatening movements whatsoever. And had it meant harm, it certainly had the chance to do it right then and there.
Right, yeah.
Towards either of us. But I remember any of the nervousness went away when I started becoming more interested in trying to figure out what it was. I became at a point very calm. I wasn't afraid. I was unsure of and a little nervous. So, okay. It stands there. Then it very slowly and precisely turns towards the catwalk. Now these catwalks have been torn apart and everything. They went out to nothing and dropped off three stories down. It's where they had removed equipment or whatever the thing used to be there.
Okay.
It turned very slowly and precisely, walking out on the catwalk. Now the catwalk is metal grating. You could see the bulk moving and hearing its footsteps in the glass right in front of us. And then when it started to walk out on the catwalk, and I know the sound because I grew up on the with the towboats so far that they all had metal grating on their catwalks. So I'm still at this point that I'm not sure what I'm seeing. I didn't want anyone to get hurt, so I yelled, "Buddy, don't go out on the catwalk. There's no railing. It drops off 3 stories down." Never hesitation. Then we heard the sound of wings. So it also heard the sound before we went into the building, when we were on the ground. But again, we discussed it and thought it was what you have on these coats, but couldn't make that sound. But I walked on the back of the catwalk, and only at that time, for some reason, is when it started getting a little nervous. Maybe it started to dawn on us that we were seeing something, but we hesitantly left. On the ride home, I remembered that I was concerned about the thing maybe following us and swooping us down, and happening to bump us at 70 or 75 miles an hour. On a motorcycle, you don't want to be bumped. One thing you always stuck in my mind is all these years is how in the world, if a person or something out there to scare us, how could it get up there And how could it get down so quickly and inside while we were coming out up the steps? It was impossible. Yeah, there's a lot more to this, but that's pretty much the bulk of his story.
And that's a pretty detailed encounter.
So once again, which we're going to see with a lot of these stories, no intention of harm.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. It didn't, not at all. And it was
Ample
also...
opportunity.
Yeah, it had all the... Well, it seemed like they were there alone. What better place... If you were... Let's just say... Let's make this the most nefarious thing you can even imagine. Let's just say it was a guy playing a prank on them or something. If you're going to hurt somebody...
Just throw them off the catwalk.
You're in the most opportune place to do it right then and there, and nothing happened. That's the weird thing. Nothing happened at all. So when it was swooping down, like chasing people, did it mean harm? Was it just genuinely curious? I don't know, because I feel like if it meant harm at all, right now, it was an opportunity. It would have dealt harm, but at the same time, we never would have got the story if it did, you know? Because dead men tell no tales.
It's just crazy. Just no harm intended. And that's the first time I ever heard that story is in this book.
Yeah, okay. Same here. I never heard it.
I've watched, I think, pretty much every Mothman documentary you can watch. I've listened to a lot of podcasts on Mothman. Never heard this.
Same.
And it really presses the agenda to me that it doesn't mean harm. It seemed to check out the guys because it seemed to be like kind of peering over the edge, just watching people pass by.
Yeah.
And they seen it. And then it's like, oh crap, they're coming up here.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of slowly pacing, like, oh, are they going to come over here more? Are they come? And then they didn't. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go back over here now.
Right, yeah.
Because you guys don't seem to be doing anything more.
Right, exactly.
And as he started walking back, they walked away.
Yeah.
So I think the Mothman was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I wonder what I don't know. Wonder what it's thinking. Wonder what's going through its head. If it even thinks like us, I don't know. I wonder what's going through their heads, though. Because I don't know how you could stand there 5-6 feet away from something that's just in the darkness, that's looming there, that's clearly big, and not feel any form of fear or just, I don't know, I guess naturally I would have just been fearful of seeing a big, tall, dark thing not hovering over, but pacing in front of you, and say that, from within arm's reach away. If you take a couple more steps. I just like that, also the account, it never stepped into the moonlight, it never stepped into like visible light where they could really make it out. That's just an interesting little tidbit there.
You're my Bigfoot. That's exactly what it did.
Same thing, yeah.
They know.
Yeah, they do know. It's strange, ain't it?
I'm flipping through articles, but yeah, these are pretty much all about the same stories, but yeah. All right, you ready for your next story? I'm going to have you read this one.
Sure,
I'll introduce and then...
Sure, yeah. Yeah, since these are new.
So, witness name, I think it's Shirley Hensley. Yeah, Shirley Hensley. Huntington, West Virginia. Red-eyed creature is the description. Early 1960s. So this may predate the major flap of Mothman sightings.
Yeah, it does. Well,
depending on which 1960s she's talking about.
Yeah.
I think he interviewed her way later. And, so when you get older, it's harder. Years kind of smash together.
Yeah. Shoot, I deal with that already.
Okay.
Yeah, this was back when that one song came out. It's about how I remember history sometimes in my life.
So just start there.
Okay. So the interviewer's asking, can you remember the year and time span that all this happened? And what's her name? It's Shirley. I wonder if this is in relation to the Hensley we met. We're at Salt Fork. Wouldn't that be a crazy coincidence?
That would be.
Okay, but Shirley's answer. It was around 1961 and continued through 1964. I was married in 1964, and then Mom and Dad moved away from there. Where was your house located? This was on what they used to call the 31st Street Hill, but the real name was Crotty Street. Located right up over the hill behind our house was Rotary Park. Interviewer asks, so you were not out in the countryside very far? No, my family was very poor, and I didn't realize that other people did not live the way that we did. We had an outhouse and burnt wood and coal for heat, and basically lived in a shack. We existed from day to day. I am the oldest of 9 children. And when something like this happens, it is just part of the misery, and you just think that it is just another part of your life. We felt fortunate if a lot of time would pass before we heard this thing again. We not only could hear it, but it went around the house, and it would bump up against the side of the house. We had plastic covering the windows instead of real glass windows. There was one very big window, and whatever this thing was could have just come right through it if it had wanted to. You could hear the grunting noise as it bumped against the house, and the leaves crackling under its feet. We could also hear gargling type sounds, and then a very loud scream would come out. It was a blood-curdling scream like nothing I had ever heard before or since. Well, that just sounds wonderful.
Mm-hmm. But again, opportunity to do harm, and so far, no.
It's not yet.
Like she said, there was a hole in the front of their house.
It could have
just came in.
Mm-hmm. Had it wanted. All right, interviewer asks, since your family lived on the outskirts of the city, almost into the country, do you feel that maybe there could have been coyotes or animals that possibly on the hills like that? Oh, got it. Coyotes or animals like that possibly on the hills behind your house. She says, I don't know what it was up in the hills in Rotary Park. People back in those days thought of coyotes as being mainly out west, which ain't true. We got coyotes and stuff.
No, it was.
Back then it was?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Oh, so coyotes, here's your little sidebar.
Yeah.
Were only native to like 4 or 5 states in the U.S., and it was all out west. When we killed all the wolves, they expanded their range.
Really?
Yeah. That's why coyotes are destroying this over here.
Yeah.
Because the system's not made for them.
We need more wolves back, huh?
Yeah.
That's Operation Wolf Repopulation, Ohio. All right.
But yeah, so her point is accurate, yes.
Okay.
So coyotes are extremely rare this far this far east at this
Gotcha.
point.
Okay, that makes sense then. Okay, interviewer. Did you or your family ever hear any noise coming from atop your roof at any time? She says, no, we did not. You were the first person who's ever asked me that. I just went around the house, or it just went around the house. Our water well was just out the road from our house. We would have to go out with a bucket and drop it down the well to get our water for the next morning. We all took turns getting the water, and we had a rule that we had to get the water before dark. This is when this thing always came around. We never saw it in the daylight, so everyone knew that they had to bring in the water before dark. If you didn't do it, then it didn't get done. Makes sense. So, interviewer, how often did you hear this noise outside your house? Was it a few times over a few years? She said, no, when it started, it would come around 1 or 2 nights for about 3 weeks, and then it would go away. This went on for about 3 years. They asked, what was your father's reaction when the noise started outside? She said, at first my parents had other things on their mind other than stuff they called foolishness. The first time they ever heard it was out near an old flatbed truck that sat outside the road in front of our house. I had a boyfriend who would visit me at that time, and I was so ashamed of our house, so we would sit in the cab of that truck and talk. We were sitting in the truck, and we heard something bump against the truck from underneath, and a loud scream. At first, I thought it was one of our neighbor's pigs making the noise. I found out later that he did not have any pigs. We finally jumped out of the truck and ran into the house. A few days later, my mother and I, along with a couple of my brothers and sisters, went to the well to get some water. Behind the well were some large bushes and trees. When she dropped the bucket in the well, we heard that familiar scream coming from that area where the bushes were. She grabbed us and told us all to run to the house. That was the first time my mother heard it. So the interview asked, can you tell me what happened when your father shot at it? She says, I remember it was in the fall because I was dating my husband at the time, and my father told me I had to be home by dark, so I would always be home by about 6 p.m. I had just walked up our driveway and opened the front door. My mother ran into the room. She was frantic, and she told me to get into the house because I had heard that thing again. She said my father had gone out to go get my 2 other sisters who were outside playing. Dad said he heard the scream, and after pushing my 2 sisters into the house, he hunkered down by the door. Just out from our front porch was our neighbor's coal pile. He said he could hear it scrambling in the coal pile, so he stuck his arm in our door and told our neighbor Delmer to hand him a gun. Delmer's son handed Dad out a .22 rifle. Times were so much different then.
I know. That's what I was just thinking.
In my head, I'm
You
like,
stick your hand in somebody else's house. Hand me a gun.
and there it is.
Hand me a gun. Oh, okay.
Come on, Delmer.
Hand me a gun.
I have a great.
It's not their house, and somebody still hands him a gun.
I have a great uncle Delmer. That's
If
funny.
you shove your hand in my house, yell for me to give you a gun. I'll give you a gun one bullet at a time.
You're right. Dad always hated the fact that it was only a .22 caliber, and that he couldn't do much damage with it. In fact, he did get a good shot at it. He pulled the gun up to shoot, and as he watched, he could see the two large red eyes coming up over the coal. He shot at it, and it let out a large scream and started running towards the hill. So he hit it,
Yeah.
Sounds like he hit it, but still at 22. Yeah. That's funny. He's mad that you gave me a BB gun.
You give me a squirrel gun? Come on.
Yeah.
Thanks the size of a grizzly.
Yeah. Interviewer asked, how did he describe its features such as body size and color? She said, Dad was a little angry because he had told my sister Mary to stay in the house, but she had witnessed the whole thing while standing behind him. She said it was big, tall, black, and shiny thing with big red eyes. Dad described it as at least 7 feet tall, and that it had very long arms that went down past its knees, and that when it ran up the hillside, the arms stayed down at its side. He said it ran in an awkward manner. Okay, that would be running with its arms straight down, like by its side.
Some Bigfoots are described as that too. It's what we see with a lot of creatures that have arms that are
Long.
almost unproportionately long, like gibbons. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when they run, it's so awkward, but they just shove them straight down so they're not getting in the way.
Ah, gotcha. Okay, interesting. Interviewer asked a couple more questions. Did the scream that you heard resemble any type of animal or bird? No. And she says, no, because my dad grew up in Fayette County years ago. People had tried to tell him that what he was hearing and seeing was a panther. But Dad always said that a panther either screams like a woman or sounds like a baby crying. He said it was neither of those. He also dismissed it as being a screech owl of any sort. My two sisters would look for footprints or tracks, and one day they found a big print in the dirt. Dad came out and looked at it, and he had said he had never seen any tracks that resembled that type of footprint before. I was always amazed at the fact that whatever this thing was never hurt anyone. I think that it was as afraid of us as we were afraid of it. We had these two little hound dogs named Roscoe and Sluggo, and they stayed outside because we didn't keep dogs in the house. When we would hear this thing scream, the dogs would just come tearing at the door, whimpering and terror-stricken. When we would open the door and let them in, the hair on their backs would literally be standing up straight in the air. They would claw to get under the covers of the bed and just sit there and shake. So last question. How did your father describe the eyes when he shot at it that night? He said they looked like red bicycle reflectors. Shirley went on to tell me that she and her immediate neighbors at the time still get together to discuss the unexplained red-eyed monster that roamed the hillside around their houses near Huntington. It was during 1966 when she had heard about the weird sightings of a large bird with red eyes in Point Pleasant. This is when she began to wonder if the incidents were related. Mm-hmm. Oh, goodness. So she's equating it to the sandhill crane. I bet I said Red Hill crane.
No, she's to the Scarberry's report.
Okay.
This was happening before.
Gotcha.
And then the Scarberry stuff came out, and they're like, oh, I wonder if it's the same thing.
Sounds like it.
So she was saying that it would visit visit in a 3-week cycle.
A couple times a week.
Yeah, a couple times a week.
Yep.
2 to 3 times a week.
And
then it would disappear for months. And she said that happened for years.
3 to 4 years before ever the 66 famous encounters happened.
Yes.
And her dad got a shot off at it.
Yeah, and it, once again, never seemed to hurt anybody. Mm-hmm. I don't know why it was bumping into the house. It was trying to keep warm, which will come up later.
True, yeah.
Because the house was so open that there could have been heat and stuff coming out. Or, I don't think food. Didn't mess with the dogs.
No, it didn't mess with anything of theirs. And their house, it wasn't like it was impossible to get into because they said
and
the
then
windows
the other neighbors had seen
plastic.
the thing too.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole community that she lived in had seen the thing. They knew it was common knowledge that this thing was out there.
Was out there, yes, and around the edge of town. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting little story there. Another little piece of the puzzle. Again, it never hurt anybody. I think it's seen only in at nighttime, right?
Well, yeah. Except was the coal incident when it was on the coal pile during the day, or was that at night when he shot it?
I don't remember it saying during the day. I think all he said he remembered soon was the eyes come out over the pile.
Okay, so I'm not sure on that one. I'm assuming night.
Yeah, I'm assuming it just because the rest of them, because she said it would fly around at night. They wouldn't go out after dark. Yeah, it had to be during the night because they never would go out. You know, they would only get the water and stuff during the daytime. So I'm assuming it's only at night. Be my guess. She said Definitely. That's when it came around.
Yeah.
So another point, or another, I guess, piece to the puzzle. I said that already, but what else is it? Mm-hmm. And it's definitely not, and we just covered this in a previous episode, Snallygaster. It's not fitting any description like that, you know, as far as aggression or behavior.
Yeah, there's no really sign of actual aggression.
Yeah, at all. And
or
with other, like, flying...
And they didn't see it fly very much. They just assumed, besides her story, you know, they assumed it was flying around at night because they could hear it.
Mm-hmm. True.
Bump it into the house and stuff like that.
With this account, yeah. They never saw it fly.
They only saw it run and stuff like that.
Awkwardly, with its arms down.
Which is going back to the Scarberries, they seen it run all the time. Mm-hmm. It would run from place to place on the ground awkwardly.
Wonder if it only flew, like, when it needed to, like, cover distance or something. Because it obviously could fly fast if it wanted to go somewhere. Interesting. What are your thoughts on that story?
It's fitting this unsung profile of the Mothman.
And that's pre
Point Pleasant.
Yeah, pre-famous Mothman, I guess.
And I think what these stories are proving is that the actual behavioral profile of the Mothman is very different than the documentaries portray. Very different than a lot of other shows portray.
And very different than a lot of pictures even display.
Yes, it's very... I don't want to ruin this yet. It has very unique behaviors that I think attribute to other things. It seems very shy, but it comes around people or buildings or structures when it has to. Mm-hmm. Like it needs shelter. Mm-hmm. Like it is biological. Mm-hmm. It seems to there was only one account of it attacking dogs, but it had ample opportunities to attack dogs.
Right, yeah.
But who knows about that, you know. It seems scared and shy and nervous.
And, again, never hurt anybody.
Yeah, it had ample opportunities to become a man-eater, but never did.
Interesting. Maybe it's a vegan.
Or we talked about the Quetzalcoatlus, the giant pterosaur. Mm-hmm. If it's that kind of flyer, because a lot of times it does not seem flapping or only flapping once to get airborne, it's more lightly built than anything we've had experiences with. So it's like a bug eater, like a giant bug eater. And then so it can't handle, like if you punch the thing, you know, it probably is like made of balsa wood, basically.
Maybe its head's full of transparent gas.
Oh, there you go. But the big wide mouth, you know, like a lot of the birds that eat bugs and stuff, that's what they have, the big wide mouth, like bass.
Now, could a big wide body structure then, maybe if it turned sideways, it wasn't like as thick as it looked, you know, straight on.
Yeah. And it could be puffing up too.
Yeah.
You see birds and stuff will puff up for defense.
Air sac or something.
That, or even just if it has feathers or fur, making them stand up.
Look bigger.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'm big and scary, you know, back up.
I'm not going to do nothing to you, but...
Right. It's all an act.
Exactly.
Because he can't.
Interesting.
With the speeds it was getting and stuff like that, seemed like it was... Sorry.
Adjust your mic.
Yeah. We got new mic stands, and I'm trying to keep it screwed in. There we go.
There you go. That looks good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the last one for now, of just Mothman sightings for Behind the Red Eyes...
Behind Red Eyes
is face to face with the Mothman. And how would you say that?
All right, what am I looking at here? Oh, the name? Mm-hmm. Marcella Bennett is what I would say. Marcella. What would you say?
No, it's just odd.
Why?
Emily has some Bennetts in her family. And we're going to get to Emily's story. She's not, unfortunately, going to be here for it. But Emily has a very personal connection to the Mothman. We just found out this past weekend. So, yeah. here's a little prereq for this one. The night after Linda Scarberry and others encountered a large winged creature in the TNT area, Marcella, is that how you said? Marcella Bennett.
Yeah.
And her brother and sister-in-law decided to pay a visit to their family members who lived in the general vicinity of the TNT area. The very last thing on Marcella's mind was coming face to face with the same terrifying creature that others had seen on the nights before. But yeah, so that's what her little prereq is.
Okay.
So, interviewer, when your encounter took place on November 16th, 1966, were you aware of the sightings of Linda Scarberry and the others from the previous night on the 15th? My sister and her husband lived up and around the TNT area. We had stopped by my mother's house in Henderson. We had picked up the newspaper and read about it. We thought it would be fun to drive up there and maybe spook the children at my sister's house. But my sister and her husband had gone to church, so my brother Raymond and his wife Kathy and I all decided to drive up and visit a while with the kids. When we arrived there, only the 3 kids were at the house. When we went in, we asked them about what people were seeing up there at the TNT area, and if they were afraid of being there by themselves. They said no, so we stayed for a while, and then we decided to leave around 9 p.m. before my sister and her husband had returned. When we started out the door to leave, my brother Raymond stopped when he got down towards the bottom of the steps. Was it in front of you or behind you? The interviewer asked. He and his wife Kathy were walking in front of me. He stopped and was trying to get my attention as I walked past them and walked towards the car. He said, "Look up there in the sky to your right, Marcella. What is that in the sky? It coming at us." At this point, I was not really interested or paying attention, and I continued walking towards the car. I was carrying my 2-year-old daughter, Tina, in my arms. I was driving that evening, so I had the car keys in my hand. I just kept ignoring my brother Raymond. But I turned, and when I did, I saw the light. Raymond yelled, "It's not a plane. What is that?" I said, "I don't know." But at this point, it was like I wasn't even in control of listening to my brother or trying to stop me to see the light in the sky. I saw the light, but at the same time, it was almost like I was being drawn to go towards the car. How far was the car from the front of the house? A short distance, because we hadn't pulled right in up to the house, probably about 20 yards. So I just kept walking, and Raymond kept yelling, "Stop, look at the light. What is that?" It was just like a magnet pulling me towards the car, and I didn't feel like I was in control of myself. "Can you describe the light you saw?" It was a real brilliant light, almost as if they would hurt your eyes to stare directly at them. I don't know what a plane looks like, but it wasn't a plane. Lights. When I got to the car, I had my daughter Tina in my hand, my right arm, and the car keys in the other hand. I was the driver that evening, but for some reason, I went to the passenger side of the car. When I started to unlock the car door, I remembered looking down at the car keys and saw these legs that looked like gray feathers. They looked like a man's legs, but I didn't see feet. I just started looking up towards the body, and when I looked up at the shoulders and the head, I could see that the thing wasn't a man. It looked more like a bird, but in my mind, I knew it was too big to be a bird. The head was stuck down in the shoulder area and hung over. The shoulders were almost in an upward position. She actively demonstrated the body position.
Okay.
My immediate reaction was that I had never seen anything like this before, and my mind was racing. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move at this point. I just stood there and looked at it, but I couldn't figure out what I was seeing. "How close were you standing to it?" the interviewer asked. "Within a few feet. It just rose up and stood as if it was going to relax up against the side of the car. I just thought my life was over. This was something that I'd never seen or heard tell of before. Even in my wildest imagination, I couldn't figure out what I was looking at. But I knew it wasn't a man. It did look like a big bird because of its arms were like wings. Where the wings extended, the wings were drawn towards the body, and its head was stuck down into the shoulders like a bird. Its head was tilted sideways. Did you see any type of eyes? I did not see any eyes. I have never said that I have seen red eyes. I don't know if I was too frightened to even notice any type of red eyes at this time. Do you recall any type of facial features? No. I do not know that there was a head. At first, I thought I was seeing a gray, khaki clothes, but then I realized they were not clothes, but looked more like feathers. It was in the dark, but I was very close to it. Did it make any sounds? It did not make any sounds at all. I just figured my time was over. I was going to die. I thought that at any point, this thing was going to either pick me up and hurt my little girl. I could hear my brother yelling at this point. Did your brother see it? He saw it, but he would not come towards me or where we were. He and his wife were both very frightened. He kept yelling, run, run. I tried to turn my body. I tried to run. I couldn't because I was frozen. Many people have talked and have described the indistinguishable feeling of fear during their experiences. It has almost had like a sixth sense that it was warning them about something was about to happen. Well, it's like my brother telling me, who kept telling me to look up and look at the bright light. I knew it was an unusual light, and I had never seen anything like it anything as bright. But it was almost as if I was hypnotized to be drawn to walking towards the car. But I couldn't hear him yelling at me. Stop, come back. It still rings in my ears today. When I finally got myself turned around, I tried to run towards the house, but I couldn't run. I fell on top of Tina. I could hear her crying, but I couldn't move. I couldn't move off the top of her. I thought that the thing was going to pick me up by my back, but I was worried about suffocating her. I just couldn't do anything my mind was wanting me to do. At this point, did you make any movements of any kind? He asked, did it make any movements of any kind? I heard a flapping of wings in the background. I tried to run. It was that thought of claws maybe reaching out and grabbing me by my back. I had only taken maybe 4 steps when I fell flat on top of Tina. Did your brother or his wife run back into the house, or did they wait on you until you could make it back into the house? They were both on the steps waiting. When I did get back to the house, I had burnt my hands because I was holding a cigarette. Oh, so she had a cigarette too.
Okay.
I had burnt my hands because I was holding a cigarette, and my knees were all bleeding and skinned pretty bad. The side of my face was bleeding from where I'd fallen. What was the overall atmosphere inside of the house at this point? The children were fighting to death, screaming. No one knew what was going on, and they were all hysterical. I can remember hearing my brother yelling at calling the Mason County Sheriff's Department, but by this time I was lying on the sofa. Just coming and going with everyone was trying to comfort me. They were wiping the blood off of me from where I had fallen. Had anybody noticed as if the thing was still outside the house? When Richard came in, he locked the front door behind us. I can still hear him telling the sheriff's department to get to the TNT area because they had seen the creature. He had told them that he had locked the house, but that it was still outside. Raymond said that when I'd gotten to him at the bottom of the steps, he heard what was flapping of the wings as if it was a plane taking off. He heard the wings He heard the wings that didn't go very far, but he didn't see it fly because we all had our backs turned. He kept saying it was still outside the house. Did it come onto the porch of the house? It came to the front window and looked in the window. It was so dreadful by the time that I did not pay much attention, but Raymond saw it. It also came to the front door and sort of shoved on the door. And the sheriff's deputy arrived. When the sheriff's deputy arrived, and the front yard was full of police. How long did it take the police to get to your house? I would say no longer than 15 or 20 minutes.
That's pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nowadays.
The next line says, they were pretty fast.
Oh.
That's why I was laughing. They had heard the same stories from the nights before. They were looking all around the house. They did not make a mockery of what had been reported because they had saw that I was injured. They believed we were telling them. They had guns drawn and were searching around the house. Before I realized it, the front yard was full of people and cars from everywhere. It looked like a drive-in theater. Raymond talked to the police and filled out paperwork in the police report. Did anyone find any type of evidence around the house of the thing present? John Keel was in town at this time, and he and I went back a few days later and found that there were footprints of some sort. You were visited by the press soon after? Oh, yes. The first night, I made Raymond go home with me. I told my husband what had happened and what we had saw. He told me to try to calm down and relax, but I couldn't hardly sleep. And no sooner had I fallen asleep, I would think that I could hear the thing's wings flapping and noises on top of the roof. I could feel that the thing had followed us home. Linda Scarberry had stated almost the exact same feeling. I know this sounds like a very strange thing, but this really happened. I am 65 years old now, and I have never changed my story. I know what I saw. I know what I heard. I never drove that night. I never drove at night after that happened. One night I had to pick up my husband at work. When I did, I got about halfway home and I felt the presence of whatever that was in the back, or whatever was in the backseat of the car. I almost had wrecked the car that night. I hit the brakes so hard and jerked my neck, I turned around to see that the thing was in the back. So your experience definitely changed your life. But yeah, so that basically goes on to say that, yeah, she suffered all kinds of stuff forever from this.
Yeah, it's like trauma that the fear of this thing gave her.
8 people that night witnessed that.
Yeah.
There was 8 people, including the kids.
That's quite a few people at one time to be making something up, you know?
Yes.
Which I'm just saying it lending to credibility of this account.
Yeah. So, yeah, what do you think about that story?
It sounds like a lot of these stories, if there is one overlap, is one, it never did hurt anybody, but at the same time, it did leave like almost like a fear trauma.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Left behind on everybody.
That's very, very common.
Yeah.
It seems like the more, yeah. So is that purposeful, or is it just because it's so otherworldly?
Yeah, so extraordinary that's just there, or is it doing it on purpose, or what if that's what its purpose was? What if this thing ain't real? It's a hologram projection to scare you.
We'll save that for later.
What a deep cut. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, that's a pretty fearful story, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Out of all of them, that's one of the scariest ones.
So, did you get the depiction that the bright light was something else?
Other than just...
Like the Mothman wasn't the thing that the bright light was? I know it was kind of hard with the way I was reading it. I don't think the bright light was the Mothman. I think it was something else.
Like a UFO?
Yeah.
Kind of gave you that feel, like an energy ball. You know what I mean? Or an orb. An energy orb.
Yes. So, it's so weird. And I don't know. It just, those are, once again, from the book Mothman Behind the Red Eyes. They're stories I've never heard.
Yeah.
They still have police reports with them. They still have newspaper clippings. But none of the documentaries cover them as far as I can remember.
Well, I was just saying this kind of goes back to what you said at the very beginning is some of these stories, they don't lead to your conclusion of what this thing is.
Yeah.
So they're not included in the story because it can throw off the end result of what you think it might be.
Right, the narrative.
The narrative, yeah.
Each people that make these documentaries and stuff have a narrative. We're trying not to have a narrative.
We just want to tell the story.
Right, this happened.
Yeah.
Whether, what story it fits is, it's impossible to tell. You can't put it in a box.
Right.
Even when we get to the end where we try to put it in a box, you still can't.
Right, exactly. We'll put it in our box, but that's about it.
So, do you have anything else to add about her sighting?
And I think the biggest thing I got out of it was just the fear that was attached with it.
Do you think it felt bad is why it was peeking in the windows?
Oh, I would say no. It's probably just curious, just overall curious. It probably sensed
like, oh crap! I didn't want that to happen.
And then I
was trying to tell you not to get in the car so you wouldn't have a wreck tonight.
Right? Yeah, or something. Yeah, exactly. Or something like that, yeah. It might have just caused enough hysteria where people were just all stirred up. And it could sense that and was like, well, what's going on in there? I want to know. Not realizing it was the reason why everything is going nuts inside.
So I have a couple stories that I don't have sources for you.
Okay.
That I've heard through various things. So these are the almost untold stories. They're unheard of stories. First one's Mothman stole a baby.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I remember you telling me this once.
Yeah, Mothman stole a baby.
Yeah.
Once again, this is poor Appalachia. Mm-hmm. What we've seen, I've shown you firsthand poor Appalachia. Some of these areas are just horribly struck.
It's rough.
Yeah. So there was a family living in a trailer that this kid and the baby had to share a room, and there was a hole in the roof that was covered up by tarp. So just a hole, like a hole would mean you could fit in.
Right, yeah.
In a trailer. So it's already, and that's the baby's room.
Yeah.
But it's they don't have money. Mm-hmm. Nobody has money. It's something we think is so novel, but they could not afford to fix the hole.
And the baby's room.
Yeah.
It's roof.
And that's probably the best room in the house.
Yeah, exactly. Is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the baby was crying one night, and his older brother, he was probably like, say 9 for the story's sake. Well, they would have all kinds of stuff with the Mothman like happening in the area at the same time, 66. Well, the baby was crying, and the Mothman opens up that hole in the roof and starts reaching in. The kid screams. The mom comes rushing, or is the grandma? The grandma comes rushing in, and the Mothman's grabbing the baby and kind of just takes off. Mm-hmm. And they see the Mothman flying with the baby, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And basically the parents are going, or the grandma's going hysterical. The kid's out screaming. And this Mothman eventually brings the baby back, puts it back in the crib.
Yeah.
After it stops screaming. And I know that's a very short, abridged version of that story. But some people think that's, gorilla-like behavior almost. Oh, the baby's screaming. The baby's crying. I got to save it.
Mm-hmm. Got to help him out.
And then it's like, okay, the baby's calm now. I can put it back.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Any police reports of that one or no?
I can't remember because I couldn't find it when I was doing this stuff. I couldn't find an actual thing with it. That's on.
I remember you telling me that story before. Mm-hmm. I just wonder if there is validity to that one. But if there is, I wonder if that baby had any, what was that? Like radiation or...
So let's get to that.
Okay.
My next story was, I think it was a couple, November 18th of 66. So 2 days after the Scarberries, 3 days. They had an close encounter with the Mothman, a face-to-face encounter, which is common, according to, with all the sightings from this book.
Right, exactly.
It's more common than is led on, that it was approaching these people or letting people approach it. Mm-hmm. And they said that it was squeaking like a mouse. And she said it was the wife was getting closer. It was almost like it was trying to talk to them.
Yeah.
She said she never felt menaced. And then that she got violently ill. And as she got violently ill and her husband started getting violently ill, it started backing away and then eventually left. And it's almost like it realized it was making them sick. And why I say that is they went to the hospital. Their symptoms were radiation poisoning to a T.
Okay.
And it's like when it realized it was causing it, it was like, oh, I got to get out of here. So these stories are painting it more as an unwilling visitor.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be here. I'm just scared. And a lot of these stories, if you take a look at it like that, through that window, it's like, yeah, it seems lost. It seems like it's trying to make a connection with somebody.
Right.
To help figure out something, and it just can't.
Get it on its right path or something. Yeah.
And then my last one is my favorite Mothman story. So this is in December, before December 17th, which is a very important date for this story, which is the next kind of big section of this. Yeah. So before, it's early December, a kid woke up at night, and they were in Point Pleasant, and they had a chimney and stuff like that. It's snowing. And he looked out the window. Mothman was outside of his window. I think I was terrified as a child. He sees it, and it's like, so he goes and gets his mom and dad, like, hey, the big bird's outside my window. Mm-hmm. And he had to get them up like 3 or 4 times. And then they finally came. And yeah, Mothman was. At first, he had his wings wrapped around the chimney trying to keep all the heat in. Mm. And then when he seen the family watch him through the window, he turned to be on the opposite side of the chimney, still kept his wings around it, but tucked his head down.
Yeah.
To try to hide.
Hide from him, but still wanted to stay there.
Still wanted the heat.
Yeah. Huh. Was the chimney, was there a lit fire in there?
Yes, that's how they heated their house.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So
it's just staying warm, whatever it was.
It was really it really looked like it was so cold.
Is what you would imagine.
Yeah. It wanted to stay warm.
December, throes of winter. Mm-hmm. Well, if that's what it was doing, I mean, again, it meant no harm.
So yeah, let's go overall. That's the end of this type of sightings.
Yeah.
That's all the sightings I got for you.
Okay.
What do you think?
Like common behaviors.
Consistencies. What do you see?
Means no harm.
Mm-hmm. Doesn't do it. Has opportunity to do harm. Mm-hmm. Doesn't do it.
You're right. It doesn't willingly commit harm towards anyone.
Yes, and I think there are some accidental.
Yeah.
And I think once it realizes that, it backs away.
It did, yeah, which it did in that one case. But like, that's the main underlying factor. 2, everyone pretty well describes the same type of thing they're seeing. Mm-hmm. It's got to be the same thing whenever they're seeing. I don't think it's a variation or something could be this and then that something could be that. Like this one, it could be a sandhill crane. On this one, there's no way. I think all of them, there's no way. None of them. I think they're all pretty much describing the same thing, same phenomenon, whatever it is. But the one where the woman could see, like she even described it was the only little different as possibly having feathers on its legs or something.
Yeah. Yeah, feathers are a type fur, feather-like.
That's probably the only one that even mentioned, or that got close enough detail to say something like that.
Yeah, she was like 2 foot from the thing.
Exactly, and that don't happen very often at all from any of these accounts. It's all.
Well, I don't know. Think the guys in the factory were only 3 or 4 feet from it.
Correct.
6 feet at the most. And the girl's dad was within feet of it.
Yeah.
It was just on the opposite of the coal pile. And the scarberries were close. The cops were close to it. I think it let people get close a lot until it started. I think till it started making people sick, and then it started backing away. Because then we'll get to the next episode with the bridge event coming up.
Right.
It started backing away and being seen flying more, not on the ground. All these first sightings seem to be mostly ground-based. The Scarberries were started ground-based, ended ground-based.
I wonder if before the bridge, before we get there, before any of that ever happened, if there was anything going on around that was also odd that you could attribute to this thing being the cause of it. I don't recall anything, like a structure, like a bridge falling or collapsing or just being weakened or anything weird. If there was anything strange afoot before that even happened. Man, I don't know.
I don't know either.
It wasn't
like my research.
And it wasn't like a TNT thing blew up back then, because I don't think it did.
No, they never had an incident as far as I know in their record. A public incident.
Name one TNT plant that's never had a public incident.
Point Pleasant TNT plant.
That's one of one.
Chernobyl.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'm just saying. What I'm saying is maybe that's not what it was after all. Maybe it was something different.
We're still like 3 hours away from explanations. I don't know why you're getting into this.
I don't know either. I don't know.
But yeah, it's just the constant theme of the stories. All happening in relatively fast succession.
Yep.
Most of these happen in a 4-day period.
Mm-hmm. And they're all so similar. Yet different, but at the same time, I believe they're all describing the same thing. The same encounter with the same thing. Which is pretty awesome.
I think, yeah. I'm right there with you.
That's awesome. Now, I mean, that doesn't get to whether... I think all these things... I think everything here is pretty genuine, too.
Yes. I don't think there's much... When you get into the real stories, when you look at the actual documentation, not documentaries, not movies, not, just drawn up stuff.
eyewitness interviews.
It's flat and plain and true. Mm-hmm. I think these are all with very little, what do you want to say? Very little hoaxed up, very little exaggerated.
Yeah, nothing exaggerated. There you go.
Yeah, it's
no,
very,
it's not
I think it's very,
grandiose.
there you go. I think it's very what happened.
Yeah, very neutral.
Mm-hmm. And it scarred people.
Yeah.
And it terrified people.
Nothing sounds like it's being hyped up or described in a way of, exaggerating anything at all. Everything's pretty straightforward, pretty basic too. But it's just not basic because it's the subject matter. Mm-hmm. 7-foot weird things that looked wide and had wings, was black with red eyes. Yeah, it was just there. I seen it. It was there. But it's not like it's, I don't know, started flying circles around me and chanting in like tongues towards like weird stuff. Nothing crazy.
Yeah. And we're going to get into either next, I'm looking at my notes. Yes, probably next episode is when we'll get into the other stuff.
The WHOO.
The poltergeist, the UFOs, the Men in Black, Indrid.
Mm-hmm.
Like
the weird.
Happening the exact same time.
Yeah.
The Mothman, without getting into the end already, isn't the big point.
Mm-hmm.
He's not.
He's one of.
He is, I think, I don't want to say it. I'm not even going to say it. He's not the main guy here.
A lot of factors at play.
Yes, that aren't, that these Mothman stuff, I don't think a lot of it's connected. I think a lot of it is byproduct of something else. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why he seems so lost. He seems scared. Mm-hmm. He doesn't seem violent. He just seems like, I don't know what's going on either.
Exactly, yeah.
That's my take of it. I don't know what's going on either, guys. Mm-hmm. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be here. I don't know what's going on.
Let's figure this out.
I was at Lanlios yesterday.
Yeah, good call.
All right, guys. When we come back, we're going to tackle that fateful day, the Silver Bridge collapse. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll be back. Welcome back to Mothman Part 4. We've been doing this for 4 hours.
At least.
And we're not even halfway done.
We're not even halfway there?
We're just now to the horrible day.
Oh, the fateful day.
The fateful day. I have horrible day in my notes.
Okay, we'll call it that then.
So.
The horrible day.
The horrible day.
Welcome back to our Mothman
yes.
Season finale.
He's Mr. E, and I'm Jay.
That is so wrong.
Together, we are Here we are the paranormal investigators of the Black Swamp. Oh, that's a different group. Never mind. Oh. We're Cryptids of the Corn podcast. That's what we are.
I was going to say, I had no idea what you're talking about at all.
That's a different group. So look, Jay, that's my notes that we've done. That's my notes we haven't. And you still have all your notes. Yeah.
Mine is not nearly as extensive as yours.
Yeah, you even got some big parts. You said you have an hour on Injured Cold. You said that.
We got plenty. You could just talk about it and go for an hour.
I don't know. I don't know much, like that much about him. I know enough.
Tell you the story.
All right. So first we're going to get to the pinnacle of the Mothman.
The height of it all.
The Silver Bridge collapse.
How about when reality really reared its head in an ugly way?
Yeah. So, on somber note, this is the third worst bridge collapse in U.S. history. And until what we just looked at earlier, until the 90s, it was the worst.
I think the 80s was when the really bad one.
The late 80s, and then it wasn't topped again until the
90s.
Until the 2000s.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, so this has been,
this is a bad one.
This is So the horrible day. The Silver Bridge was an I-beam chain suspension bridge built in 1928, named for the color of the aluminum paint. The bridge carried U.S. Route 35 over the Ohio River, connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and Gallipolis, Ohio. And this is December 15th. I was wrong. I thought it was the 17th. It was December 15th.
Okay. I was going to say I have the
1967. The Silver Bridge collapsed under the weight of a rush hour traffic, resulting in the deaths of 46 people. 2 victims, however, were never found. Investigators of the wreckage pointed to the cause of the collapse being a failure of a single I-beam under the suspension chain. Due to the small defect, 0.01 inches, or 0.25 millimeters deep, and analysis showed that the bridge was carrying much heavier loads than it was ever originally designed to have been carrying, and was poorly maintained. The collapsed bridge was replaced with the Silver Monument Bridge, or Memorial Bridge.
Okay.
Sorry, which was completed in 1969.
Oh, that went up fast.
Yeah. So that's kind of the rough, and I'll give you the extended here in a second. Yeah, so this is a horrible thing. I believe 150 people went in, and 49 died.
Okay.
And then they said two have never been recovered.
Okay.
And it took some of the bodies took weeks to get because they were under so much rubble. I mean, a whole bridge. That's
Right.
a lot. That's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff.
From one I-beam.
Yeah, so I was looking that up, and I guess a suspension chain is basically, that's how it works. It's held by its own weight over multiple things.
Yeah.
So when you pull one out, it just goes.
It's like a domino.
And that's the whole bridge collapsed in less than 20 seconds.
Yeah, that's pretty fast.
And I mean the whole bridge. Most of these bridges collapse in minutes. Most people run off them. That's why it was so deadly.
Yeah.
It was there was no even time to think.
Just happened.
Yeah, you were in the Ohio River in December with hundreds of thousands of tons of metal and concrete coming after you.
Right, mangled and on top of you. Good Lord, that would be awful. I'm looking at the picture right, and I pulled it up on my phone, the picture of the news article of the bridge collapse, just so I could...
The pillars are all that stand. That were standing.
That is crazy. And those are now gone.
They tore them out.
Yeah, that would have been cool to see. But we drove across that bridge, didn't we? When we
The
came?
Memorial Bridge, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then we walked in our videos and showed where the original bridge would be standing. Mm-hmm. It'd be in between the train trestle bridge, which is still there, and the new bridge.
Yep.
Closer to the train trestle bridge.
You can even see where we were kind of standing in this photo. That's craziness.
So, the longer version, on December 15th, 1967, at approximately 5 p.m., the U.S. Highway 35 bridge connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia to Ohio, suddenly collapsed into the Ohio River. At the time of its failure, 37 vehicles were crossing the bridge in this end of the bridge's span. The 31 of those automobiles fell with the bridge. 46 individuals perished with the buckling of the bridge, and 9 were seriously injured. The rest of them, I guess, just
made it.
I mean, they hit the water and they swam out. It wasn't like that far of a drop. Mm-hmm. If you didn't get pinned, it wasn't that bad.
Right, yeah.
The Ohio's pretty gentle right there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, if your leg's broken, it's a lot harder.
Right, one of those 9 probably.
Along with the numerous fatalities and injuries, a major transportation route connecting West Virginia and Ohio was destroyed, disrupting the lives of many in shrieking fear across the nation.
Wow.
This is like a major route.
Yeah.
And most people, it's like, which we'll talk about in here in a second, Emily's family, like they worked in Point Pleasant but lived in Ohio.
Yeah, so they needed this bridge.
Because the next bridge is a long way away.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I think Portsmouth is the next one in Ohio, and that's to Kentucky.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah, quite a distance.
Yeah. So the American Bridge Company constructed the highway bridge, like I said, in 1928. That's basically... The bridge was dubbed the Silver Bridge because of the first aluminum painted bridge.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see. So we already talked why it failed, but we're going to talk about it a little more.
Okay.
The bridge failure was due to a defect in a single link known as I-bar 330 on the north of the Ohio subsequent. I can't say that word.
Subsequent?
Yes, chain. The first link below the top of the Ohio Tower. A small crack was forming through the fetting wearing of the bearing. It grew through initial corrosion, a problem known as stress corrosion cracking. The crack was only about 0.01 inches deep within the link when the link failed, breaking in a brittle fashion. growing off the crack. It probably extended by residential stress in the I-beams created during the manufacturing. And so that's kind of, some of it was poorer quality stuff.
Sounds like it, yeah.
But yeah, so basically...
My one take out of this, infrastructure. Mm-hmm. It's important.
So yeah, let's talk about that.
Infrastructure.
So before I get into the paranormal or Mothman side of this collapse, the bridge had been surveyed roughly a couple weeks before, and no fault was detected. But this was a spot that should have been looked at pretty heavy, because these were known spots of problems on these bridges. So there's kind of a little bit of argument whether they seen it and were like, we can't afford to fix this. Yeah. Because the areas are very poor. Yeah. The state doesn't want to deal with it. So I worked with, I showed you the dowsers for acid mine drainage springs. Oh, yeah. And the counties and the state fight about them constantly and kill giant sections of river because nobody wants to pay for them. Right. Because the county's like, we can't afford this. This is, some of those houses are $75,000 a month to maintain. It's not, what'd you call it earlier? It's a Superfund site. Superfund, like I said, there's like 10 of those in the U.S. Exactly, yeah. Those are a different level above this. Right, okay. This is killing 100 miles of river, which is not a Superfund site. Jeez, that's crazy. You don't even understand what a Superfund site means. Exactly, that sounds awful now. Yeah. Yeah, this isn't even close to touching a Superfund site. This is just killing hundreds of miles of river, and Superfund sites like way out of proportion compared to this. That's nuts. That's crazy. It just gets out, we all die. Kind of those deals. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, makes sense. But what was I saying? Now you made me lose my train of thought. Sorry, I derailed you. Oh, so yeah. So the counties will be like, we can't afford this. We want to keep it going, but we just can't. It's bigger than our budget allows for taxation. And the state's like, well, it's not our problem. It's your problem. It's in your county. And then, so yeah, that's what kind of happens with bridges. And then it gets even on the federal level sometimes with this being a state route over top. Oh, heck yeah. So nobody wants to pay for it. So there's kind of an argument there of, did it collapse because this area wasn't worth the money to fix it? Or did they really not see it? And there's always that chance that, once again, 0.01 inches. Right, yeah. On a giant bridge. Well, it's weird to imagine that they wouldn't try to fund or fix this with there being a TNT plant, right there. So at this point, it's closed down, remember? Oh, that's right. Yeah, closed down in 48. It's nothing but a nature preserve. It's just a shell now of what it was. Okay. I can't remember when did they say the bridge was initially built? Like 28. 20s, yeah. Okay. Makes sense. So I guess that maybe leads more towards why they didn't choose to put money back in it to fix it if they knew. If they knew. And there's always the chance. Right. People, accidents happen. People make mistakes. You miss stuff. Oh, exactly. So it could, it doesn't have to be nefarious. Right. But there is that chance that it could be nefarious. Could be. Because I can only imagine if that plant was still active, there's no way they would have just passed on that inspection at all. Or that bridge would have probably been inspected a lot closer. But that's just me on that one. So now with the Mothman. So this has been basically a little over a year since the Scarberries incident. Keep in mind, that was November of 66. We're now in December of 67. Okay. So the Mothman has been sighted pretty much once a week, every week. At least. Very active. Constant. And then, but these 4 days before the bridge fell, sightings ramped up. And he was seen during the day. Oh, and that's never happened. Yeah, that was as far as we could find in our research. Mothman doesn't come out during the day. He is nocturnal. Actively avoids light. He's nocturnal. And then the last 3 days, he was constantly flying over the Ohio River and landing on the bridge and being seen on top of the bridge and stuff like that. It was constantly going up under the bridge. And then the collapse happened. So, that brings us to the question. Well, yeah. Well, before you get there. Okay. Then the sightings kind of just stop. After the bridge? After the bridge collapse. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Did the bridge collapse because the Mothman? Or was he what we think is the omen trying to warn us
of the bridge collapsing.
Yes.
Correct. That's where you're going to fall somewhere on that fence, right?
Yes, because he was being seen going up under the bridge is where these tension beams were. Mm-hmm. Or was he just landing on it, or, or is it just a roost? Birds love bridges.
That's true, yeah. It could just be that. If it is bird.
Oh, bird-like.
Right.
A flyer. If they get tired, it's off the ground, so it's easier to jump off and fly.
Right, yeah. You're just already there.
So if you want to go way biological, flying animals love bridges. Mm-hmm. Because it's a nice roost. Mm-hmm. If it's the omen, is he trying to warn everybody? Stay away, Because that's kind of, you can kind of look at the previous sightings and see, like, was he just scaring people off from dangerous situations? Mm-hmm. Was he trying to keep you out of the building that was collapsing? Was he trying to keep you off the catwalk? Was he trying to keep you away from your car where you're going to die in the car accident tonight?
A protector of
sorts. And then this was the one where he actually came out during the day. Was like, everybody run, get back, stay off, go away.
That should be something significant there, as he came out was sighted during the day.
Mm-hmm. That was the big change.
There's something significant with that.
Mm-hmm. Just leave, be gone.
Yeah, maybe so.
Or was he nefarious?
Yeah.
Was he, or an accidental? That's one I forgot too. If we kind of were hinting at in the last episode or last installment, is that he may be radioactive in some way, shape, or form. So background radiation, or high levels of, not high levels of radiation, but radiation levels that are higher than normal can cause stress fractures in steel.
Yeah, exactly.
So was his presence in the bridge the fault? Not on purpose,
byproduct.
But byproduct of him being there, hanging out. Was that what caused the stress fracture? And that's why they didn't catch it a week before, because he wasn't there a week before. He was there 4 days before.
And maybe that's why he wasn't seen for a while, because he realized I did that.
Or he got caught in the bridge that was falling on top of him.
Yeah, or that too. What if he got smashed underneath it?
Yeah, I mean...
What if that's one of the bodies that never recovered?
It was the Mothman?
Yeah.
Or was it more nefarious? Was he causing it on purpose?
Mm-hmm. What's your theory? You want to discuss that now?
I think we can with the bridge.
Yeah, I think so, because it's a bridge. Mm-hmm. It is what it is. Nothing will change it.
But we are not making light of anybody's lost life, because this was horrible.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and should I tell Emily's story real quick?
Oh, yeah, since she's not here.
Emily's great-grandmother, I think it was her great. It may be her great-great. She was older at this time, too. But she lived in Athens and worked in Point Pleasant. She was on the bridge when it fell and claimed to have seen Mothman the weeks before.
That's awesome.
And say this as you will, she ended up in the loony bin later in life. Mm-hmm. But, she had dementia at that time, so it's whatever. But yeah, Emily, we didn't know this till this weekend.
Yeah, isn't that nuts?
Because we were talking about the Mothman. She's like, oh, your great-grandmother knew about the Mothman. Like, we've talked about Bigfoot and everything forever, and you've never said anything.
Exactly. And your family, this wasn't brought up?
I know, it's just like... But yeah.
That is weird. It's really funny, though.
But yeah, and that made sense, because she worked at the Huntington Bake there in Point Pleasant.
Okay. And then she got caught up on the bridge the day of. That's crazy.
And then she swam to the West Virginia side.
She swam?
Yeah, of course she swam.
Well, yeah, I guess she had to. I don't know. I guess in my head, you lived. Well, yeah, I know.
I just hovered over.
Maybe a Flatwoods monster helped her hover.
Mothman carried me.
Yeah, then I'd understand why she ended up where, if that were the case. If that was her excuse.
So that's Emily's story, but we had to share it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. She needs to have that, pass that. You need to start passing that down, in family, what do you call that?
Oh, I'll
your
keep
family
it alive.
folklore?
Yeah, I'll keep it alive. But yeah, so now back to the causes of the bridge collapse.
Well, what if it was just let's see here. How can I describe this? What if it sensed that there was danger?
So you're going with omen.
Yes.
Not a cause, but trying to warn.
Possibly so. What if it was even trying to fix or trying to warn, trying to scare people away from the bridge, maybe? Seeing it during the day? Because, let's say it just, I don't know, this is escaping the biological.
No, go ahead.
More of the paranormal or multi-dimensional. Mm-hmm. What if it sensed what was about to happen in the future? There's about to be a big bridge collapse. I can already sense all the trauma and, fear in this area that's about to unfold. And now he's there scoping it out. What's the cause? What? There's nothing here. Looking for the cause of it. I don't know. Who knows? Can't find it. He's just hanging out. People leave. They're not leaving. And then it collapses. And then he's like, well, I tried to warn you. See you later.
I'm going with accidental cause.
Like it was an accident.
I do think, and we talked about it last episode, of background, him having some kind of background radiation. And
yeah.
We probably won't get into why he has background radiation until probably episode or installment 4 or 5. Or no, this is installment 4. Until installment 5 or
6 or 10 or 13.
But yeah, I think he had background radiation or residual radiation, and I think it was a cause or an exaggerator of the already existing problem.
Like he pushed it. It was already there, and he just made it worse. Or accelerated
but not purposeful. I don't think it was purposeful.
Right.
I just think it was a byproduct of his nature. Whether that, interdimensional or whatever.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. It's just a byproduct of his biology, wherever his biology is from.
Yeah. And possibly so. If we can prove that that's a possibility. Like, if you can just prove that, say that, I guess, I don't know, you take something that's radioactive, similar to him, and you set it next to that. If it really does do that, why is that not necessarily an explanation as to why? I think it's very reasonable.
Yeah, it's just... have we gotten a room with a Mothman where we can try it with the chunk of steel?
Right, yeah. That's what I'm saying. You need something that already gives that out, that we're...
we know radiation. We know higher levels of radiation does affect steel in this way.
Well,
that's what I said, but I'd maybe not explain it right. Yes, we know that radiation affects steel in this way.
Okay, so it is known.
It can affect steel in this way.
Yeah.
It can cause degradation of the bonds.
Okay.
Which
so if
makes
already
it easier
for
or already existing cracks to exaggerate them more.
Mm-hmm. So he could have just been stooping under there.
Yeah, like a big pigeon.
Yeah. All right. I like that theory, too. It's a pretty good one.
Mm-hmm. So that's the actual Silver Bridge collapse and the part. Do you have anything else to add to the Silver Bridge?
I wonder how differently they built the new one.
Very different. It's a high tension suspension bridge now.
So one flaw can't make the whole thing collapse anymore.
I don't think so. I think each cable is its own thing.
Okay.
But it does rely on the big main cable.
So did they anti-Mothman it? Is that what they did?
I don't know, because it's still steel.
But it's built differently.
Yeah, it's built differently.
They made it Mothman proof.
Yeah, we don't build them like we did in the 20s anymore.
Right, I know, right? Usually
for good reason.
And usually it's the opposite.
Yeah. Bridges are a little different.
Right?
We don't want to replace them every 10 years.
No, I know.
That's one of the few things manufacturers don't want to replace.
Because
it's a big pain.
It is, especially when you're trying to go home and your bridge is closed or outside your house and you have to take the long way around.
When was the bridge to your house closed?
Periodically, from time to time. The one particularly on mine, not as often. The one...
you're talking about the little creek bridges.
Yeah, just little bridges.
I thought you were talking about like off at 30.
No. I don't even know if there is any on that I can recall. But yeah, either way, yeah. Bridges suck when they go down. And moral of the story, sucks when bridges collapse, especially when there's people on it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. All right. We'll be back with the next installment. I don't know where this is going to go, but it's going in somewhere. But we'll be back, and we're going to start covering the other part of the paranormal stuff with Point Pleasant at the same time. So we'll be back. Good morning, Vietnam. How's that? Is that more acceptable?
Yeah, we had a little technical issue in the cold.
I hope we haven't had it before. I haven't been paying attention to our little recorder very much, so now I'm kind of nervous.
We're still, even at the end of season 1, we're a professional podcast.
I don't know what's going on 90% of the time.
None of us do.
All right, so what we were saying is that with congruency, to Mothman is the other paranormal stuff that's happening in Point Pleasant and in this part of the country at the same time.
At the same time as all
Tons.
these.
We're going to see in this episode is all about the other paranormal that's happening at the same time in the same place. Maybe or maybe not connected to Mothman. So some of this stuff may not have anything to do. Some of it may be the byproduct of the same event. But we'll see that.
And yeah, true.
Bum, bum, bum.
And we never really hammered out whatever the event is, you know.
Right, that's for the end.
True. Yeah, but we haven't even explored it at all.
All right, so this episode will do everything from poltergeist, UFOs, injured cold, and the Men in Black. I think that's what I have.
And people will be like, what is going on here?
Oh, and John Keel.
Oh, yeah. I just have a little bit of him, like a little expert, or excerpt. He's an expert. He's an interesting feller. Mm-hmm. So where do we want to start?
So we're going to start with the poltergeist activity, because I don't have much on it, so that's going to be our smallest thing.
All right, that'll be a good opener.
But I can't remember the name of the organization, dang it. But like the U.S. Poltergeist Activity Research, like the MUFON for poltergeist.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they had like an uptick in reported poltergeist activity in Point Pleasant in the years of 66 and 67.
So they were around doing this back then?
Yeah, by 3,000%.
Oh my gosh. That's a bit of a tick.
Everybody was experiencing poltergeist. And as we get in with UFOs, everybody was experiencing UFOs. It was truly insane. But no, like poltergeist activity is common. Like there were people that were at this point like getting annoyed that their books kept flying off the shelf.
Really?
Annoyed. Not scared, not frightened, not horrified. Like, gosh dang it, stop knocking the freaking books off the shelf. Stop it. Like, annoyed.
Yeah. So there's, that's so crazy. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
And that's what this episode's going to be about. The poltergeist is like a little tidbit, a little taste of everything else happening in Point Pleasant. And it kind of stopped later on. Mm-hmm. And it's not in congruency with maybe like the Silver Bridge collapse, as in the Mothman may or may not be. But it followed the same spike and the same decline as everything else.
Yeah. Almost like they're... So, before we even get into say they're all interconnected, one is a causation of the other. Before any of that, we can just say how can I even try to say this? They're all connected by the same point in time, at the same exact place.
The same place
all
at
existing.
The same time. That is, if no other connection, that is the connection.
That is yes, exactly. So if we start from there, we can at least draw those on our big board of red twine we got hung up over here. We can connect those two dots.
These all share a place and a time.
We should have had a conspiracy board going as
I
this
couldn't
episode.
do it. This was already my computer screaming from the amount of documents it is saved to it that have the words moth and man in them.
All right. So what kind of poltergeist activity was going on here?
So the big one was a lot of like stuff being knocked off of shelves. Mm-hmm. And people were like, would just kind of commonplace, the cups won't stay on the shelf anymore. It kind of reminds me of like Skinwalker Ranch on a more calmer note.
Yeah.
But people were like locking their shelves and stuff like that because cups would fly out.
So it's more just an annoying thing rather than...
It got to be annoying because it was happening every day. Mm-hmm. Every day, cups were knocking off the shelf. Every day there was odd smells in the house. Every day it was creaking like somebody was walking through the house.
Interesting.
So can you imagine experiencing that much poltergeist activity? It's not even a point of conversation. You're annoyed.
Yeah.
Like, stop knocking my tchotchkes off the shelf.
Not the tchotchkes. It's funny. I mean, that's funny. I mean...
Oh, the tchotchkes?
Yeah. I know. I really couldn't imagine it because it would just be commonplace. I'd want to just experience it once and be like, "Ooh, that's weird, guys," and then
we're going to see a really similar thing when we get to the UFOs that people got annoyed or not annoyed, bored.
Bored. Okay. Just there's another one.
Bored.
Yeah, which is unheard of. Mm-hmm. Unheard of. But with the poltergeist or that activity, was there ever
stuff getting knocked to the shelf? Is the big one I've read about.
Ever any like dark shadows, people? Things like
there were
that?
shadow people and stuff like that being seen. There was, which are a different thing than poltergeist, just so you know.
Okay.
Shadow people are not poltergeist. They're not congruent.
So what's poltergeist? What's
poltergeist? You ever seen the movie Poltergeist?
When it comes out of the TV?
Kind of. Yeah. So basically, stuff that you knock off the shelf That's your active haunting, where animate things are happening.
Okay.
But you don't see anything. It's not like there's a thing causing it. It's just like stuff falls off the shelf.
Gotcha.
There's weird smells. There's walking footsteps.
That's poltergeist.
Yes.
Okay. Makes sense. And
a lot of times there's not a story or a person connected to poltergeist activity.
Or physical entity seen.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Or spirit seen or witnessed or stuff like that.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of times poltergeists are kind of their own, like a different creature. Mm-hmm. Like a thing that's acting out.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. Like, I can imagine that now.
Yeah. But that's kind of, I couldn't find like direct stories to point at.
Yeah.
Besides people just saying, yeah, that happened a lot.
Interesting. And I wonder, like, that connection there. I mean, I think poltergeist activity happens around, like, electromagnetic fields.
Or little girls.
Or that. Is that from the movie?
No, that's an actual thing with poltergeist.
Okay.
They're reported that some people think it's actually caused by young girls entering adulthood. And it's their emotions that are causing the activity around them. Because it is common. It's not 100% of the time with poltergeist activity, but a big chunk of the time it's a girl entering adulthood.
Dang.
And they think that it's either the things are attracted to that energy,
yeah,
or they're causing.
They're emitting that energy.
They are causing the distortions of the reality.
My mind is, I need to have a drink or two before we continue on.
Yeah. And that's a whole episode. We'll do an episode on poltergeist because I don't think they're not ghosts. I'll say that right now. They're not people.
Just energy?
I don't know that answer. I don't know what they are. These are not people.
Okay.
They are active. They are almost thought out. They screw with you. Like if you talk to them, they don't ever talk back 99% of the time. But you talk to them, they retaliate.
Respond?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, stop knocking my blue cup off the shelf. And that one will go get stuck in the wall across the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the red cup. It's the blue cup. Like, they react.
Right, yeah,
appropriately.
Yeah.
Or what you would
intelligently.
think. Yeah, intelligently. Thank you.
Yeah.
But that was, I can't remember the name of the organization. But basically, 3,000% up.
Which is, that's a bit up. Just a little bit.
That's like a fancy way, and I don't know how credible. Like, I don't even have the name of this organization written down, so I don't even know how credible they are. But it's just to show there was already kind of a little bit of stuff happening. Mm-hmm. Like in Appalachia, there's always a little bit of this stuff happening. Mm-hmm. But then this happened extremely. Like, it kicked up, especially the years of 66 and 67.
Which is the hotbed for all of this.
The Mothman was there way before that. Mm-hmm. But that was when he was seen weekly, and then at the end, daily.
Interesting.
And going back to the last little tidbit we did before this, the Silver Bridge, was that just a byproduct of the same weird strangeness of these 2 years?
Right, yeah.
Not the end result.
Because did all that stuff kind of end after the bridge? No,
after the bridge, tapered off.
That's what I meant. Like, it started its decline.
Yes, so I think like the Silver Bridge event, whether it was or was not the apex, it happened at the time of the apex of activity.
And then everything beyond that is a taper.
But when we get to the end of this section, I have a theory for that too.
Okay.
That it may not have tapered.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Understood.
Yeah. But, so yeah, that's what I have for the poltergeist. I don't have a lot on it because there was not really a source that would point like Mrs. Johnson had this happen. Mm-hmm. It was more of just sites we're talking about. Everyone was experiencing poltergeist activity. Mm-hmm. It was just odd. It was like...
That is odd.
It was very commonplace. It was weird how they were describing it. That they weren't worried about it. It wasn't like a big deal.
Just weird stuff was happening. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's weird that like a lot of people were reporting on it because it's not something that...
And it wasn't even people reporting on it. It was just commonplace conversation.
Okay,
I had
there you
another
go.
book fall off the shelf. That's why I can't find names of this stuff. When we look at the Mothman, and later on we're going to look at Men in Black and Injured Cold, they have names associated with them of people because that was more unique.
Gotcha.
The poltergeist was not unique.
Gotcha.
It's crazy to me when I was looking into that. The poltergeist activity is not unique.
It was just commonplace for
baseline.
Them. Right. At
this point.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not normal baseline.
And we're getting we're building up to the end episode or the end installment because this is all leading up towards that.
I know I'm leaning towards that because I already know what you're... We haven't really discussed it. We maybe hinted at it.
And mine may have changed a little bit. You don't even know.
Okay, well, I know generally where you're heading.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this whole time, I'm not even thinking about that, yet my brain just keeps going back to it without even... Because we haven't even discussed it. We talked about it. We like... You already know. We already know. A lot of big things coming at the end. A lot of pieces to put together.
I do have... So that's it for Poltergeist.
Okay.
The next part of this episode is called Mothman, the WHOO.
Okay, the WHOO. All right.
And if you don't know, in the paranormal, Bigfoot, cryptozoological communities, the WHOO is the unexplainable aspect of the sides of these things. If you look at it as a coin, there's the stuff that you can explain away or can understand in a biological or scientific sense.
In the material world.
In the material world, that's good. And then the WHOO is the other side of the coin. Doesn't mean either side is wrong or right. It just means we have a side of these phenomena we can explain. Whether it's explaining by a creature like Bigfoot or the creature like Mothman. And then we have the side that's WHOO. The orbs of light, the passing through walls, the books flying off the shelf. We know they happen.
Mm-hmm. We just can't...
There's no reasonable explanation for them.
Yeah, there's no like physical definition you can define of those actions happening to explain away. And maybe this is just kind of reaching on a wider topic of life in general, but with these things, you have both sides that come with it. And almost doesn't matter what the account is. For the most part, you got the strange biological, physical, material things happen, and then you also have these weird, unexplainable, non-physical, more emotional, spiritual things you experience with both everything. And what if there's a lot more to life than that, than we even realize it? Everything we think is material probably has an equal opposite side of the coin, like you said, a flip of material. But we just don't see it because...
When you lay the coin on the table, you can only see one side.
Exactly.
Whether it's the WHOO side or the physical side.
Mm-hmm. That's true, yeah. I like that. So let's just keep that out there for...
We're still getting the hand in these new mic stands.
Yeah, I know, right?
Jay touched his mic and it like flung away.
Pointed at you. It floated away.
But yeah, so I have a UFO story out of, once again... Jeff Wamsley's book, and I don't know how to say his last name.
Wamsley, yeah. You want me to read this?
Yes, that's why I have it pointed at you.
Okay.
But yeah, he has it's the UFO over 30th Street, right?
Yep.
Or 31st Street?
30th
Street.
I think 31st is like the Freddy Krueger thing, maybe.
No, 31st is...
Miracle on 30...
Oh, that is that, but no, I'm thinking of the squid on 31st Street by Senior Pinch.
Oh, okay.
That's a different anomaly somewhere else in New York.
Okay, so this is UFOs over 30th Street. The witness name is Dolly Grady. Let's see if I got any more. Report date, November 1966. The description of the object she saw was silver with 3 lights. All right, so here's her account. Let me see. Should I start with the interview? I'll just give you the overview of what her accounts was.
Point your mic down a little bit.
Amidst the heavy UFO and Men in Black encounters, there seemed to be one area in Upper Point Pleasant where many weird things were happening. The street where I lived was called 30th Street and intersected with nearby Jackson Avenue.
Pause real quick.
Yes.
She says Upper Point Pleasant. Keep in mind, everybody, this is a town that's 3 square miles. So upper, you can see the upper and lower Point Pleasant standing at the same spot.
Right.
I'm just making a point that there's that much activity in
this
one
small,
spot that she can point to a spot in this tiny little town and be like, there's a lot of stuff happening right there.
Which, coming from a small town, very easily relatable.
I mean, that's weird though.
Very weird.
We'd say like half of Ada. No, right there.
Exactly.
Between Mr. Johnson's and Mrs. Huckabee.
Exactly.
There's a fire hydrant right there.
Yeah.
And the UFO has been parked there every night.
Why are you doing impressions of our town folk here, You might as well be. Yeah. Not that you're doing anyone in particular. You just literally sound like...
I got into my West Virginian voice.
There you go. Yeah, I was add a little twang to it. All right, so 30th Street almost hosted a wide array of Mothman and UFO-related witness, including the home of Park and Mabel McDaniel, parents of Linda Scarberry, where John Keel stayed and conducted many of his Mothman and UFO investigations. before I get further, we brought him up a couple times. John Keel is the guy that wrote the Mothman Prophecies book and the
Big
movie.
researcher.
The big researcher in, I think, Cryptid and just...
In general, yeah, but
Cryptid
Mothman
and
was
Weird
his,
and WHOO.
like...
Big one.
His kickoff.
Yeah. And the movie obviously is based off his book and his work and stuff like that. So he's a big guy in this.
Eventually, he'll have his
field.
own episode.
For sure. I think he needs one. Let's see here. Where was he at? So living next door to the McDaniels was Dolly Grady and her family. After leaving church one evening in the nearby Belmead subdivision, Dolly stared directly at a large, strange-looking spacecraft hovering in the field across Jackson Avenue, and then watched the object fly in the direction of 30th Street. Little did Dolly realize she would be thrust in the middle of John Keel's quest for answers about the strange lights being seen in the skies of Point Pleasant. So now here comes the interview, and I believe this might be John actually interviewing her. I'll double check before I say that. Yeah, I believe it was. Okay, so it starts here with a question. In November of 1966, you lived 5 houses down from my family on 30th Street here in Point Pleasant. What were your thoughts at that time about the Mothman and UFO?
This is Jeff interviewing her.
Oh, Jeff's interviewing her. Okay, gotcha.
Jeff's the Point Pleasant native.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sorry.
That's my bad then. What were your thoughts about that time, the Mothman and the UFO activity going on here? Are you asking if I believe it happened? She said. He says, yes, I am. She says, yes, I have a tendency to believe because their stories all basically stayed the same. I do not believe that John Keel and some others who investigated what was happening would have wasted their time for as long as they did. He spent a lot of time in Point Pleasant. I don't think he would have stayed here if he had not felt that there was some substance to the story. I knew Park and Mabel McDaniel, that Linda Scarberry's parents, and their kids. I believe they saw something horrendous. I just believe they did. So he asked, did you spend much time next door talking to McDaniels and Linda? She says, oh, yes. I spent a lot of time at their houses. Their kids and my kids all knew each other. I just don't think that they thought something like that up. So he asked, did you talk with John Keel during his stay next door with the McDaniel family? She says, I mostly listened. I didn't want to barge in. They would invite me over and I would sit in and listen to their discussion. It was very interesting to me. And I'm going to pause right there. How cool of a discussion would that be?
I know.
With a guy like this?
I know. You couldn't get me off his side, I'm sure.
I know. I can't imagine the...
And I was like, I don't want to intrude.
I'd
be like, tell me, John. Tell me everything.
You'd have your hands around his neck, threatening answers.
Tell me what you know.
Just pretend he's not a Dover demon, please. All right. So continue. He asked, what do you recall about the 15th of November sightings as reported by Linda Scarberry and the other 3 witnesses? She said, I do remember that Gary Northrup, who at the time owned and operated Tiny's Drive-In at the end of 30th Street, and who also lived beside us, said that he didn't know what they had seen, but he knew that he knew those kids had seen something terrifying. And then it goes on to say that about Linda's and all their accounts to the police separately and stuff like that. And then also Gary when he talked to the police. Next question. I talked to a man who claims he was eating at Tiny's on the evening that Linda and the others ran into the restaurant and talked to Gary. He said that he had no idea in his mind that they had been traumatized by something. Oh, sorry. Let me reread that. He said he had no doubt in his mind that they had been traumatized by something up in the TNT plant. He said they were really shaken by the whole ordeal. And then she goes on to say, what's her name again? I already forget. Dolly, sorry. Dolly said, Gary told us that they were...
Professional podcasters.
I know, very professional. Dolly told us that they were visibly shaken over what they encountered. Next question. During this time, you witnessed some UFO activity in and around 30th Street? She said, I saw a lot of unidentified flying objects that I didn't feel were airplanes or anything of the sort. In John Keel's book, The Mothman Prophecies, he talks about how he, Mary Heyer, Mabel McDaniel, and others would drive out to 5 Mile Road here in Point Pleasant. They would drive out to this dirt road to a dead end where an old farmhouse was located. This is the exact location where my husband and I cut hay for our farm, just in the past 5 years or so. I had forgotten over the years that what John Keel was writing about was basically our front door. So he asked, what did you witness just a few streets over from 30th Street and Belmead Avenue during this Mothman and the UFO sightings? She says, it was during John Keel's stay here because he was at the McDaniels home. It was early evening time and just beginning to get dark outside. I had gone to church at Belmead Church that evening, which would have been on a Wednesday night and must have been around 8:30 or 9 p.m. I had just pulled up to the main road after leaving the church, and there it was, just as big as anything. It was just hovering, not really moving, above the vacant field just on the other side of Jackson Avenue. I remember flooring the gas pedal, and as soon as I could get out onto Jackson Avenue, and when I did, this object took off at the same time. By the time I got over to 30th Street, I could see this object coming across the skyline. There were a lot of neighbors, along with John Keel, out there who saw it. It was moving in an upward direction, directly over the vacant lot between our house and McDaniel's house. That's a pretty crazy story. And there's newspaper clippings and stuff. People did witness this. It wasn't just her.
It is insane to me. Think about this. That you're outside the neighborhood, because remember, like you were saying earlier, I don't know what episode or installment, but there was not like TV wasn't that big of a thing at this time. There was no computers, no nothing like that. Mm-hmm. So most people just sat outside and hung out, talked to their neighbors and stuff. The community just watched this UFO go across. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine that today?
Oh, no.
Just everybody's like, huh. Well, there goes another one.
Right, exactly. And I'm just shocked, like, how does something like that not stick around longer, like, in people's minds or conversations?
We'll get to it. They get bored.
Which just blows my mind.
How many times do you remember, let's say, cutting up vegetables?
Mm-hmm. Right, I don't.
Yeah, because it's a task that happens a lot or whatever. There's the thing of a task that happens so often, you get bored of it.
True.
Then you don't commit it to memory anymore.
But it's like saying, it's almost, what if I asked you this? If you were an experienced skydiver, and I asked you...
if you do it enough, you would get bored.
I know, but it's like someone...
That's why those thrill seekers go up another peg all the time.
Yeah, that I get, but I'm saying like the conversation itself in general, it's like when someone asks you, oh, you skydive, it's like, yeah, It's like, no, you're usually pretty excited about...
Because they do it once every couple months.
Okay, still.
We're talking about, like, with the poltergeist and the UFOs, it's happening every day for years.
Man, it's just craziness. Wish I would have lived there during then.
Yeah, I don't. Well,
really?
Yeah, there was other stuff we'll get to.
True.
We're getting to the scarier aspects of Point Pleasant this time.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
Well, the next two groups, the Men in Black specifically, have some scary indications, including bullets are cheap.
Yes, that part is. The other one, not. Yes, that especially that. The other part, not. I wouldn't say scary. Could be, but overall, it wasn't. But we'll get to it.
Depends on what you think he is.
That's true. But for the people involved, not scary at all.
You don't know. There could be burning in hell.
Could be. I can't hear them scream. All right.
Russia.
In Russia.
That big hole that has screams coming out of it.
Yeah, the borehole. It's only like 5 inches wide, though.
Yeah, but still you can hear screams
I know, right? All right. Let's finish with this dolly. So the next question. Did the object make any type of noise or audible sounds? Were there any noticeable lights or features? She said no. It was just moving at a very fast rate of speed. There were 3 distinct colors of lights on the sides. There was a bright white light, a pastel-looking amber light, and an aqua-colored blue-green light, which almost gives me like the 3 red-green, red-green-blue kind of vibe when out on LED strip, if you know what I'm talking about. And then they asked, do you feel that the UFOs and the Mothman sightings were somehow related? She said, all I know is these things were all going on at the same time. I do not disbelieve any of the things that were happening. And that was the end of her story.
Yeah, that was a common thing. Is a lot of people don't discredit, even though at the beginning of the Scarberries they do.
Yeah.
But then it starts happening so much.
Right. And
then people's like, oh.
Like, yeah, they don't even, to the point you're not even going to question it. It's like, okay, another person. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these people seem credible people. They seem truly traumatized, truly shook up. Why, not to say, there shouldn't be a skeptic and everything, but when it happens time and time and time again, and with everybody in your community also saying, it makes it a lot easier.
At this point in Point Pleasant, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that has not had a paranormal experience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you could do it.
Mm-hmm. I don't think any whatever campaign you want to put out forward to discredit all these people would have been effective enough once enough people seen as much as what they've seen. It's just enough to where there's enough people there where if you're someone new that just experienced it for the first time, after hearing it, you're not going to automatically think you're crazy or be afraid to tell anybody. It's just, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's easier. A lot easier for it to spread, a lot harder for it to suppress too, which may come into things later, but we'll see.
So that was a UFO story I had, but people seen so many UFOs, they got bored.
Nuts.
They're pretty much these 2, 3, 4 years, UFOs daily.
And this isn't even like Area 51 stuff. This is West Virginia.
On the Ohio River.
Yeah. Who would have thought it?
But Sutton, Kentucky is the UFO capital of the side of the country.
True.
Yeah, I mean, they almost have UFOs still today on the daily sightings.
That's awesome.
And that's another one that people are bored of them. That's why people there don't talk about it. That's why they don't make news. They don't take pictures of them anymore because they always turn out bad. They're just there.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
You go to Sutton, you probably can see a UFO.
Maybe we'll do that one day.
We have a show there.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, Crypticon.
Oh, okay. Well, we're not in it yet, but...
we have our tickets. We're going to be there no matter what.
We're going to be there. We're going to vend. That's a whole nother question.
Right. Yeah, we're just going to be there.
Yeah.
But when me and Emily were there, it was super cloudy the whole time, so we didn't see anything. But we looked.
Let's take note of the weather. Maybe they're doing.
There's probably still up there. It just
maybe for that day in particular, they were doing stratospheric aerosol injections.
It's also late November when it snows constantly in Kentucky.
Just saying. Keep track of the weather.
So
patterns.
now we're going to tackle probably one of the really scarier aspects.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
The Men in Black?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
We're not on your Indrid.
Oh, okay.
That's why you're open to the Men in Black section.
Yes, I know,
there's
right?
I got 8 stories for Men in Black.
So, and Men in Black, let's just get into them.
So there's several different types, though.
Correct.
With Point Pleasant, specifically.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
and we're not talking the movie Men in Black.
No, but we have the early depictions of what may be the mirrored men, which are the trio that look identical.
Mm-hmm. And move in identical movements and walk in the same footsteps.
Most of the Men in Black here in Point Pleasant are the groups of 2. And they seem to be very direct about, no, you don't talk about this. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting her name. But a couple of the people get threatened directly or indirectly. Like if somebody, like a couple of the questions the Men in Black would ask, if somebody threatened your life to tell you to stop talking about UFOs, would you? And most of the time, they're like, yeah. They're like, okay.
Simple enough.
Yeah.
And remember,
and
kids.
they're flat face staring at you, no emotions, looking like a reptile in a suit.
Yeah, that's weird. And that's an accurate description.
And there's a couple of them that came to birthday parties to question witnesses of UFOs, paranormal activity, and Mothman. And we're going to get into stories, but there was people pretending to be the Men in Black. There was a couple guys that were dressing up like them. They had fake badges like them that were you could tell were just awkward people.
Yeah.
And they were using this to get information. They're like, okay, well, that's not the scary guy I've heard about. But yeah.
But they could still be one and the same entity, maybe.
I think they were people. There's a couple of them that were guys that were just wanting to research like John Keel, but were probably not as socially graceful as he was. John Keel is very good at getting you to tell him your story.
Yeah.
Nothing great. It's a great gift to have.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a good quality.
Yes. But these other guys seem to be not so grateful or graceful with that. So they kind of are using the scary government agent thing to get you to tell them your story.
Get their foot kind of in the door to say.
Yeah. So we have those. We have the 2 Men in Black that seem more human but from the military. And then we have the 2 and 3 groups of Men in Black that...
The mirrored men?
There's early mirrored men. None that have our modern mirrored men depictions of in unison, but 3 of them that were kind of working in unison but still doing distinct things.
Wasn't there one where there was two of them, it would be a group of two, but one would be like a big, intimidating one. One was like a smaller.
That's the government. That's the ones they think were sent from the government that were people.
Okay, just straight people.
Yeah. And sometimes the second littler guy was in a different suit than the first guy.
Yeah. It's almost like it's some sort of tactic to use.
They do that with the Bigfoot sightings too.
Interesting.
That's reported a lot. There's this big giant guy from the U.S. Forest Wildlife, and then there's a guy in a suit, a little guy in a suit, that's threatening you with legal action.
I was just say, clearly it's an intimidation tactic to get
big scary guy
to speak,
lawyer.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Two types of intimidation.
And I wonder if that's something that we developed or that we learned, or what if that was a tactic that we were taught. You know?
So with the Men in Black, we're going to talk about that maybe extraterrestrial, interdimensional, or whatever you want to call them. They don't seem to use that tactic. They seem to just not understand how to talk to you and come off threatening, not on purpose.
Okay.
In my opinion, they are just they're flat. They don't understand your emotions with it. They just want you to stop talking about them.
Or what if they do understand and they know this is just something so mind-numbingly strange? They know it will automatically elicit an honest response and an intimidating response.
And that could be too. It's just the shock and wow factor to get you to just talk because you can't think of a lie fast enough.
It's just a psychological
to blind out your brain.
Yeah,
and be like, blah, 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 because they know you're not going to lie because you're using your processing power trying to understand the situation. We've talked to that before with the Bigfoot stuff. Maybe they're guys that purposely look. They shave all their hair on purpose.
Right, yeah.
They put on lipstick.
Just to look.
So they look freaky to bug you.
Yeah. And if that is the case, it works.
It works
clearly.
every time.
Clearly.
And because most people, it's not the big burly guy because that doesn't work. Because they're like, if you're a man or like a big macho man kind of deal, you're like, I'm not taking anything from you.
Right, yeah.
And so that doesn't work 100% of the time.
But then you get a small guy to pair with him that will...
I know, I'm saying like the tall, thin guy with the painted on lipstick and no hair.
Yeah.
You're like, what the hell am I looking at?
Yeah, exactly.
Here, I won't talk about it. I promise. Just leave.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you know where my kids sleep. I don't want you there.
Mm-hmm. That's, yeah.
But some of the other guys are like when we talk about those actual stranger ones, have fingers too long.
Yeah.
Look like they're wearing skin that's not theirs. Mm-hmm. They have no pores in their face.
Strange.
And they're wearing the lipstick. They're wearing hair that is attached to their hat, not to their head.
And again, is this a part of a tactic, like a weird, strange?
I think there's 3 or 4 different types of Men in Black that are all happening at the same time.
Yeah,
and I think some of them are fully paranormal.
Okay. Do you think they're all somehow interconnected or in communication with one another?
No, I don't think so. I think you have the guys that are pretending to be the government guys. I think you have the government guys. Then I think you have the guys that are a part of the phenomena and that are coming from the other way.
Yeah.
Seeing what people are seeing or seeing what people know.
Yeah.
The cleanup crew almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
For the for the phenomenon, for whatever's happening. They're coming from that angle to keep it quiet. The government's coming from the other angle to learn and keep it quiet. I think those are 2 different types of Men in Black. We're going to go into some stories that kind of illustrate. And then you have the third or fourth group that is the guys pretending to be the government personnel, which happened.
Yeah.
There was one reporter, I can't think of his name, but he was trying to be John Keel, and he got caught dressed up. They knew his badge was fake. He was this weird, goofy guy.
Pretending to be John Keel?
Pretending to be a Men in Black.
Oh, gotcha.
Because the Men in Black story had gotten out.
Yes.
And so they knew these Men in Black were coming to ask questions.
Yes.
And there's one lady that got questioned by all 3 types of Men in Black in the same day.
No way.
Yes.
Do we have that?
I don't think I have it.
Okay.
But she basically, in the morning, she was the reporter in Gallipolis, Ohio.
Okay.
I can't think of her name, and it's really bugging me because I had it written down and I can't find it. But basically, she got visited by the aliens in the morning.
Yeah.
Or whatever you want to call them.
Well, yeah. Okay.
The phenomenal Men in Black. The weird guys.
Okay.
The ones that do not look human. She said look like you put lipstick on lizards and stuck them up in a suit. And they were awkward. The one guy was super fascinated. She gave him a pen, and he was like, didn't know what to do with it.
Wow.
They had trouble with the doors in the building.
Okay.
They had to be let in and let out.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know how they worked. They were having trouble wrapping their heads around everything. She said they visibly looked like their hair was attached to their hat because they would move their hat and their hair would go with their hat fully, not like on your head.
Right.
They really looked like reptiles, and their fingers were super long and weird. And there was 3 of them, and the one was like could not get his focus off this pen.
Yeah.
He was like clicking it.
Yeah.
And he was turning it around. And he was twisting it. It was It was
He had
like,
the ADD.
Yeah. Or it was like his first day.
Right, exactly.
And then the government officials came, and that's the kind of the ones that were kind of strong-arming her. Mm-hmm. And being like, well, if somebody threatened your life or your family's life, would you stop talking about UFOs? And she's like, yeah, I would. Straight up.
That's enough.
That's
enough right there.
And they're like, okay. And then they had the weird guy come in at the end of the day. And
The one that was there earlier?
No, the goofy guy that was trying to be John Keel.
Oh, he came in.
Yeah,
okay.
like right before she closed, and he wouldn't leave.
Wow.
And she's like, at that point, she was like, I've already dealt with the scariest MFers I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
Get out.
Right, yeah.
Because this is like some little guy that's super weird that's trying to be John Keel.
Yeah.
And she's just at this point is like,
Enough's enough.
Like, I've already dealt with aliens, or I've already dealt with lizards in a suit, and I've dealt with government officials that basically threatened my family.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. You, sir, can leave.
Yeah.
Unless you're buying something, get out.
Well, she worked at the Gallipolis paper.
Oh, okay.
She had a personal relationship with John Keel. I'm really upset I can't remember her name. I might have her story marked.
You might so. Maybe we'll get into it.
Yep. You ready?
Yeah, what are we doing? The next one?
Yep. Just start reading stories and then hand me off the next one. And this, once again, is From Behind the Red Eyes.
Oh, yes. This is still the same book. We're reading a lot of this information. This is an awesome book.
It's a good book. It's a good book, especially for this episode. I wish I would have got his other book, but it was out.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Must be a hot seller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of the Mothman books. I have also bought John Keel's Mothman book, The Mothman Prophecies.
Oh, okay. The official one? Mm-hmm. All right, so this one is witness Dottie Campbell. This was in the fall of 1966 again. She witnessed a cigar-shaped flying object. All right.
So this is both UFO and Men in Black.
Correct. During 1966, Dottie Campbell and her family lived on Jackson Avenue near Tiny's Drive-In on 30th Street, which was where all this stuff happened. And directly next door, the local newspaper reporter, Mary Heyer. Dottie would frequently visit with her close friend Mary by the fence in her backyard and listen with interest as Mary told her the newest details about all the latest Mothman and UFO reports. By now, a small group of witnesses and investigators were meeting regularly with people such as John Keel and Mary Heyer.
Mary Heyer.
Was that her?
I'm 99% sure that's who it was, that they had all three Men in Black come to her in one day.
That makes sense, because right here, works at the newspaper.
I'm like, I know I had her name written down somewhere or something. Okay, sorry, continue.
Mary Heyer. The people's... John Keel and Mary, the people who were spearheading the hunt for clues and explanations. And Dottie Campbell was one of those people. In my interview with Dottie, she speaks about Mary, the strange men in black that visit Mary, and some of the strange objects flying over Jackson Avenue. So that was Jeff's Wamsley.
I know, I feel so bad I can't pronounce his name, because he's such a good author.
Yeah.
He's such a good researcher. Like, he does an amazing job.
Amazing. So
hopefully I can get him on the show.
That would be awesome. So here, let's get into the interview. He asked her, "Can you describe to me the overall mood or atmosphere here in Point Pleasant during 1966 and 1967 when the Mothman and UFO sightings were occurring?" And Dottie responds, "I learned what was happening from Mary Heyer, who was my next-door neighbor at the time. She worked long hours and very late, but then there were some days, like on a Saturday or Sunday, she would be out in her backyard and we talked about things. She was more scared of the men in black than anything else. She told me that these men were parking across the street from her house in an older black model car, or a model black car, and were visiting her frequently in her office in downtown Point Pleasant. They would show up dressed totally in black, and she said they never blinked. She felt like they were aliens trying to look like normal people, and that's what frightened her so much. She told me they had an olive complexion. Mary talked often about John Keel and how they were both investigating some of these sightings and the weird activities going on here in Point Pleasant." So Jeff asked, "So Mary Heyer was a writer for the local newspaper?" She says, "She wrote a column in the Athens Messenger. The newspaper had an office located in downtown across from the courthouse on 6th Street. Her column was called Where the Waters Mingle." So Jeff asked, So the Mothman story actually broke in Athens Messenger before the Point Pleasant Register newspaper ran it. And she said, yes, it did. So he asked, when all the Mothman sightings started to occur, was Mary Heyer at the forefront of reporting? She says, yes, there were a lot of sightings before anyone else. That is when John Keel came here. Mary and John Keel would go down to Galapagos.
Galapagos Islands.
It's what I want to say. Ferry, and would watch the UFO activity from a hill. A lot of people did that.
It was a common Saturday thing to do.
Nuts. I can't believe it's just common. Like, that blows my mind. He asked her, do you believe that the Mothman sightings were somehow related to all the UFO sightings in any way? So Dottie says, yes, I did. They seem to be. We were having a big cookout one evening at our house on Jackson Avenue. We were having the cookout and this UFO went over the house. It was like you could reach up and touch it. There was a cigar-shaped type object. It had lights on it and it moved over the house very slowly. You could hear a thing. No sound whatsoever. It was so, or you couldn't hear a thing. No sound whatsoever. It was so eerie. The kids called the police. They came up and asked everyone what they had been drinking. They acted like we were all crazy. Many people who saw the thing were afraid to report them out of fear of being made fun of or ridiculed, which is a very common thing. Jeff asked, Mary Heyer felt that the Mothman and UFO sightings were related somehow. He's asking if she thought they were related somehow, Mary. She said yes, and she felt that these men in black were wanting to keep her quiet about it, so that she wouldn't be writing about these things in her column. This is what really frightened her. He asked, did Mary ever discuss with you any of the conversations she had with these men in black, and what type of questions they were asking her? They asked her about what she was writing, and what business did she have writing about the sightings, and so forth. It was enough that they had visited her quite often, and it scared her. Besides sitting in front of their cars in front of her house, or sitting in their cars in front of her house, she told me that they would also sit in front of her office too. He asked, did Mary ever say anything to you about their telephone lines being tapped or anything of that nature? She said, yes, she did. She told me they would hear all sorts of noises on the phone line. She thought it was all related to someone trying to listen in on our conversations concerning the sightings.
Yeah, she'd hear pops and clicks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in the old times where they'd tap your phone line, you could actually hear them pick up and set down the receiver.
Gotcha. Not it
came out in the 60s.
Right, yeah. When there was actually switchboards and stuff like that to, I don't know, I guess tap into. He asked, what are your thoughts about the sandhill crane theory? What do you think the Mothman sightings really were? Just someone seeing a large bird up in the TNT area? She says, no, I don't think that was it.
Then she shot him.
I never believed that theory. Then she pulled out a giant handgun and, no, I'm just kidding, and shot him. Let's see here. I think there's a little, no, I think that's it from her interview. There's a cool little article in here. It's got a little snippet from...
Jeff does that amazingly. He always puts the newspaper articles and stuff with them.
Oh, it's all lines here.
He does such a nice job.
Yep, it's all here. It's amazing. This is an awesome book.
Mary. Yeah, Mary. So Mary was the one that was getting them visit constantly. They were stalking her family. They were following her kid, like her family to work and stuff like that.
And she's like she's like in her 50s, 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
she's a kind older lady.
Very much so. That's exactly what she looks like.
She did not back down. But she feared for her life about daily. And like I said, the highlight was when she had all three different types of men in black visit her in one day.
Show up in one day. That's insane.
And they were all looking for information about the other. Like they were all tailing her. Because I remember the reptiles would come. I call them the reptiles, but they were the non-people people.
Yeah.
Would come, and then the government would ask about the government-seeming people would come and ask about them, and then the normal guy would come and ask about them.
Yeah. I don't want to say
so much activity,
and it's like trying to talk about like a comic book.
I know when the Mothman's not the weirdest part of what's going on.
Right. Exactly.
The giant bird moth hybrid
is not the weirdest thing. Even to the people, like the UFOs. It's not even the weirdest thing in the world anymore.
It's because they were happening so often.
Yeah, that's what's strange. But even now we're flashing forward to now, like modern day. Just looking back and talking about it, it just feels so weird because it's just so uncommon.
It feels like a story, like a written story, except We have all kinds of proof it happened.
Exactly. That's
Tons.
It's like me trying to tell you about this comic book I just read and then trying to tell you how this happened and this happened as if it were a real thing. But it was a real thing.
There is, first off, you're holding a book that has probably 2,000 newspaper articles in it.
Exactly.
And that's just a small bit. We have police reports. We have, witness statements.
Even in my book, I actually have a little form they had to fill out. I can look at the thing real quick. I have it saved. The National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. They have a whole form you have to fill out if you've seen a UFO. And I have a witness's form here to go through. It's pretty awesome. And it's what's the word? For questions, very unique questions. I can't think of the word. It's not popping in my head. Intricate question, detailed questions.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm trying to think of?
I don't know, but I'm
dancing around it, but very, I don't know, specific questions. Let's just leave it at that. But yeah, that's nuts. Men in Black, that is I almost feel like they're kind of working together, but at the same time, they're not.
I think they're all separate.
But
I think when we get into other stuff, we're about to get into Indrid, I think it's all separate at the same time, and we'll get to the end of why all this stuff is happening at the same time in the same place that is kind of not connected. I don't think the Mothman talks to the Men in Black. I don't think the Men in Black talk to Indrid Cold.
Well, why if you don't think they're connected at all, the Men in Black?
I don't think they talk. I don't think they're the...
Well, why do they all try to at least attempt to appear in similar fashion?
Because it's a mask. It's a cover.
So
Because they got to walk outside. They still got to walk to her office to threaten her. So if they come out looking like lizards...
Well, for sure.
They're going to get shot. This is West Virginia.
Do you think they're intimidating one of the other groups? Like this?
Yeah, yeah, I think there's a lot of that.
So that's what's going on. That's what I'm getting at, as far as being connected somehow.
Yeah, I think they know what our government officials dress like.
And they're
mimicking
mocking.
that.
Yeah, mimicking, mocking.
Yeah.
I tried to say both of those.
They're mimicking that, but they're doing it in a fashion they know is not correct. So when they get there, when you see them from 100 yards away, they don't look
any different.
But when you're up close, you're like, oh, you're an iguana in a top hat.
I can't. I wish I just want to see so I get this visual, because I have an image in my head. I just want to know what they saw too. I'm sure it could be the same exact image. I just want to see it. Dang it!
Yeah, big eyes. They don't look right. They're too close. Small noses. They don't have lips.
Very.
They're painted on.
I almost feel like, and I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but I get the idea of like a gray alien.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that picture in my head. A gray alien kind of dressed up. Or what? You don't know aliens very well, but a tall white.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so you know what a tall white is? That's what I get a picture of. A tall white dressed up as a guy.
Trying to be a guy, like one of us.
A tall white is big eyes, the big round bulbous head, but tall, big, long, skinny fingers.
Spindly.
And that's what's described a lot of the Men in Black. And they get infatuated with the dumbest, littlest things.
And, okay. Well, there's a little hint or a key.
Things that are so alien to them, like the pen.
Right,
Mary's
exactly.
pen.
Good example, yeah.
She gave him a pen because she was nervous, and he's like,
yeah.
jump, stop.
Right. I wonder if that's, the clicking and it's making a mating call.
And that's what, she said he was like clicking it like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get in those moods too, you know?
But you know what a pen is.
Yeah, exactly, I know.
They had to be let in and out of the building the first couple times.
Because they couldn't figure it out.
This bullets are cheap.
This is a tangent, very big tangent, but it might interconnect somehow. But similarity I noticed. So there's this video going around. You know, Chris Brown is the singer. You ever seen that video of him dunking a basketball? So people are like, "Oh, is he a shapeshifter? What is he, an alien?" So there's a video of him like dunking a basketball, and you don't know in videos because you can't believe it unless you see it with your own actual two eyes, so anything could be fake. But he does this big, tries a 360 and tries to dunk the ball. And when he tries to dunk it, you see his hand, fingers grow, weirdly grow around the basketball. And he grabs it, and he goes to dunk it, but he isn't quite there to dunk yet, so he just tucks the ball down. And then he takes that hand and just shoves it behind his back really fast. And then he spins around. When you see his hand spun around, it's back to normal, and he brings his hand back out. But for that split second, you can catch it on camera. Long, spindly fingers just grow out of nowhere. And what if shape-shifting is real? What if people can assume a human form, Or what if they're like, there's other people that I guess that can't. I don't know. I guess I don't know. What if they're trying to imitate a form, and then this is what the form they look like, because this is all they kind of know. It's as close to a human as they can
only
try
get
to
close. Get. That's the thing with skinwalkers. They can only get close.
Yeah. But, I mean, I guess in that case with Chris Brown, obviously, very human-like. That one figured something out, if that is who he is. I'm not saying that.
He hit Rihanna, right?
Yes, that was him.
Okay, that was him.
Yeah, and there you go. That's how we'll remember him. That's the best way, too. But just weird stuff like that. The long, spindly fingers that made me think of him.
Odd, for sure.
Yes, and maybe there's a connection there. Maybe it's the same being, race of whatever this was that was visiting them. Who knows? You don't know. Especially, I mean, this was 40 years ago when, or shoot, almost 60 years ago now when all this stuff actually happened. I forget where I was going with that tangent. All I'm saying is the alien, quote unquote alien, or reptilian. Are we saying like we're kind of lumping those in the same thing?
No,
for this
I
case?
just was saying just because they look so freaky.
Right.
One of her descriptions is like it looks almost like a lizard or a gecko.
And
the big eyes and stuff
yes.
like that.
So I'm just saying those men in black that they're referring to, are we referring to them as an alien or reptilian in this
the
case?
The alien men in black or the interdimensional men in black, whatever you want to call them, yeah.
Okay.
The not from here.
The not from here, okay. So we'll just call them...
The not from here.
Yeah, because I hate using the term alien, because when you think of alien...
just not from here.
Yeah. All right, not from here. All
right, you ready to step up to the bat?
All right, let's go for the...
Who are we talking about now?
Now we're going to get
into... This is probably the most, besides the direct Mothman stuff, the most requested part of the Mothman story.
Mm-hmm. And I get why, but at the same time...
He's not connected to Mothman. So they are...
It's weird.
A part of the same phenomena. Same with the UFOs. I don't think the UFOs did not drop off Mothman.
Mm-mm. No, I would say no.
Men in Black probably aren't related. I think the Men in Black are probably related to the UFOs. And the Indra Cold is a separate thing, and his group is a separate thing.
Although I do have one little connection that he made it. Indra Cold said one thing that made me...
But they're liars.
Yes, they are, but he didn't say anything that had to do with the Mothman at all. Mm-hmm. But he did say something that could connect him to Mothman.
Have you seen my dog?
Yeah, he likes German Shepherds.
No, the Mothman, or Indra is like, Mothman's his dog.
He's looking for his dog. That's the connection. No, I'll tell you what it is here soon.
It flies and it screeches and it likes to eat things.
Yeah. I've seen that thing somewhere.
So now we're moving on to Indra Cold.
So Indra Cold was seen and reported to be seen stepping off a UFO. So therefore, that would make him a...
Not from here.
Not from here. Let's go with that. Because I don't want to call him an alien.
I don't think they're aliens.
Yeah, and I don't want to call him a reptilian.
I don't think they're reptilians.
But he could be. He could be. He could be any of these things. So we're just going to call him not from here. He's a man in black. Can we call him that? He's a man.
Yeah, he does dress in black, but I don't think he is a man in black when we talk about the MBI or the MIB.
Okay, because he's not really in, but he does ask questions.
Yeah, but not in the way the men in black do.
But did they all ask questions differently?
They all were very threatening.
So with
pretty much every Men in Black encounter, you felt like you were in danger.
So maybe with every Men in Black counter is like a negative. Maybe there's
there was always a scary.
Maybe there's equally an opposite. A Men in Black that's
I know you're about to get into some
positive.
Indra Cold. I don't think he's Men in Black. He did dress dapper.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
But his questions, he never got like violent. He never threatened to kill your kids.
Yes. Right.
Like
No, not at all.
You weren't scared that he knew where you lived?
Actually, and he constantly would reassure you you're okay.
Yeah.
And he's no threat to you. He means you no harm. And
but they all do that.
They all do that. But in his case,
the Greys do it to scare the hell out of you.
True. But in his defense, the person he told all this to, he never dealt him. He never actually did.
I think Indra is closer to the Mothman in that aspect of a neutral or positive bystander to the phenomenon that is happening.
Yeah, I like that. Oh, okay.
And I think
we're gonna figure this out.
I think the Mothman is a positive bystander, or not positive, a neutral bystander.
I'd say that.
I think Indra may be a positive bystander, just a witness.
Yeah.
I think the Men in Black are lower than Indra's level.
Yes.
And they are negative.
Yes.
And that is why they're negative, is they got to be a little more violent about their means to get to the ends.
They have a negative vibration.
Indra just seems to be there just...
For the most part, he seemed pretty positive.
Now he's dead.
And now he's dead. The things he said...
Because possibly the Men in Black.
Possibly.
Because he got killed by a different race.
Possibly. Well, let's get into it.
All right. Tell me about Injured Cold.
So, Injured Cold, its story starts with his witness named Woodrow Darren Berger. He was driving home. He was a sewing machine salesman. But he was a traveling salesman. And he was driving home. I believe he actually was from Ohio, traveling back, or he lived in Ohio. He was traveling from West Virginia back home. And he was on Interstate 77. This was at November 2nd, 1966 at approximately 7:25 p.m. So this is still right before...
November what?
2nd.
Okay, yep. So right before the big Mothman stuff kicked off. Mothman has happened before this.
It was actually a couple weeks before the first sighting.
Which wasn't the first sighting, but it was the first...
major reported sightings.
And then stuff kicked off. Mm-hmm. So we're going to say that the Scarberry incident is what kicked off the apex of the phenomena. Mm-hmm. But the phenomena was happening before, just in much lower levels.
Correct.
Okay.
So he's driving home. This Woodrow's driving home, and he said the car passed him on the side. And when that car passed him, there was this UFO vehicle following, like, tailing closely behind that other car. And that other car continued to go past him, and then it continued on. But when the UFO got in front of him and he saw it, he said it got in front of him in front of the road, and then it turned sideways and blocked the whole road and came down and just stopped. And that Woodrow slowed down, and he actually attempted to pass it, but he couldn't get his way around the vehicle at all. And so he just kind of pulled over to the ditch to the side.
Very Ohioan.
What's that?
Like, I gotta pass this stupid thing.
Yeah, like, it just sounded like he was kind of...
a weird-looking tractor.
Right. It sounded like he was a little bit shook up or scared, and he just didn't want to deal with, like, he wanted to get around whatever this thing was.
That's very odd.
He didn't want to crash his car into it, but he couldn't get around it, so he just pulls over in the ditch. And then that's when he saw the door open to this thing. And he described the door opening just as, like, we would open a car door, just open sideways. And then there stepped out who we know now as Injured Cold. And so he stepped out of his vehicle, or his UFO, well, I'm just going to refer to his vehicle, and started making his way toward his truck. He said once he left the vehicle, the UFO went immediately straight up in the air. About 75 to 100 yards, just straight up, and it out of nowhere. And it was just up there. And then Indrid, or the man, started making his way towards his vehicle. And he asked him to roll his window down. Just roll your window down so we can talk to him. And he did. He obliged. He rolled his window down. And then they started speaking. And what Woodrow noticed when he was talking to him, he wasn't actually moving his mouth when he was speaking to him. It was just thoughts in his head.
Indrid wasn't moving his mouth.
Correct. Indrid wasn't moving his mouth. I don't know if I have the direct timeline of that. But, he stepped out, asked him to roll his window down, and then that's when he introduced himself as just Cold. He never said Indrid at this point, but he referred to himself as Cold. And so Woodrow, said his name and all this.
Would you like a blanket?
Right, yeah, that would be a good question. So he asked Woodrow his name first and stuff and where he's from, and then after that fact, he, said, my name's Cold. And they have quite a long conversation here, but nothing